Yes, and now the show with the most audaciously long, ultra long intro, and
The
those of
million
us
year
who
long
made it
intro.
through it. Hey, we all went through a thing together, and now
Dude,
we're
I was
here.
jamming out. I was jamming out the whole time. I can't not.
Yes.
It takes people that have been through a day and it puts them somewhere else. This is Wednesday Ultra. The woo, I consider it critical race theory for the human race. Welcome to the show. I'm Andreas. Everyone, you've probably seen a few of these faces before somewhere. This is Darth Call. Darth Call from Better Call Saul and Better Remember Based AF, Based AF Mondays. Seth from Venice Beach Dub Club, also a reggae musician who is, I think, #1 in reggae iTunes. If not, he's always floating around the top 10 from now on, I think is the deal. He's like the new reggae superstar. So very good to have you. Mark from My Family Thinks I'm Crazy, who is, in fact, I think eccentric, but they go by crazy. It's a thing. And then Mr. Douglas, who's in the house tonight. Thank you so much for being here. We always miss you when you were gone one time and I was sad, so I'm glad you're back. And
that space.
Ashton Blaze Witty. Ashton the Slytherin. Ashton the Ultra Slytherin. So how did you decide to become a Slytherin, by the way? How are you? And
I think I've always known since I was like 6 years old. Is like when I found out like my Harry Potter house, I guess. I was a huge Harry Potter nerd when I was a kid. I still am. But like when I was a kid, the movie had just come out. I was about 5 or 6 years old. And the movie just came out. And like I was obsessed. And I used to get bullied a lot for it. And so when the movie first came out, I was like huge fan of Harry Potter, huge fan of Gryffindor. Because back then it was like they had no Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff, Slytherin merch. It was all Gryffindor and nothing.
Right. The Masonic Key, Gryffindor is the only thing.
No, but okay. But basically, everyone loved Gryffindor. Everyone wanted to be Gryffindor, and so I wanted to be Gryffindor. And so I got back to school from I think like Thanksgiving break, and all the kids used to bully me because I had blonde hair, and they used to call me Draco Malfoy. And so I thought to myself,
right?
At the time, it wasn't. It was like the worst thing you could be called at the time. So I like thought to myself, okay, I can cry about it, or I can just tell my parents I hate Harry Potter, which isn't true. So throughout winter break, I thought of ideas I could like figure out. And I was horrible because my parents bought me all of this Harry Potter stuff for Christmas. And so I was like, okay, what can I do about this? So I go into my dad's closet. I steal his St. Patrick's Day tie. It was the only green tie he owned. And I wore it over all of my clothes for the rest of the year. And ever since, I've just been Slytherin. I took the test 3 times and it's always been Slytherin. So I think it was just like meant to be.
Anybody have any thoughts on Slytherin?
It's amazing and the best house by far.
Yeah,
also completely maligned in the universe of Harry Potter. I mean, that's
totally tilted scales the wrong way. Absolutely.
Oh yeah,
misrepresented.
Yeah, taking 25% of the wizarding population and saying these are the bad guys. I mean, they locked up their own students who were children
in the dungeon.
In the dungeon, bro. Not cool. And I think they're highly underrated. And I mean. Yeah, I think they're awesome. And
it's definitely Green Robe bad, for sure. Yeah, I'm definitely a proud Slytherin. I always felt bad, though, because I remember watching the series and reading it, like, after sort of experiencing that and thinking, it's a little messed up, like, how we just know, like, 5 or 6 Slytherins in the entire, Hogwarts house. And like, they're just seen as the bad guys.
Only one of them is good. Only one. Well, 2, if you count Snape.
And they're all professors.
Regulus Black. Well, Regulus was dude. He was like, you know what? I'm going with you, Sirius.
Yeah.
And he got that locket. You got to appreciate Regulus.
Yeah, because the Slytherin are a conquered people, it seems, right? And so you've got this idea that the other houses are in control, but really Gryffindor is in control. And then if you're a Hufflepuff, you can be submissive to the Gryffindor agenda. But if you're, or even to you can't if you're a Slytherin, right? Because you're a suppressed people that are atoning for whatever sort of magical war that's gone on. It's like it's a horrible thing. I mean, and they're not accepted as equals by any stretch of the imagination, but it is admitted that they are the best. I think most people will say, they are the best. They try to be the best. That's like the goal, to be the best. Whereas Gryffindor has to be good, right? Gryffindor wants to be good, godly, I guess.
But
good.
Gryffindor also thinks they're the best. And
well, here's the joke.
Superiority. It's pretty obnoxious in my opinion.
I think they're better than the best because they're right, more right than God.
Well, the thing is, about Gryffindor is there's obviously Gryffindor favoritism, especially in the Harry Potter books for sure. And so I always make the joke that Gryffindor is brave because they can be, and Slytherin is cunning because they have to be. Because if Slytherin broke the same rules that anyone in Gryffindor did, they'd be on a train sent home, they'd be thrown in Azkaban, they'd be expelled, losing points. Whereas Gryffindor broke this very important rule. Well, it was out of bravery, so 50 points to Gryffindor. And so it's just basically it's the favoritism is 100% there. Where if Slytherin does anything, picks up a spoon, that people assume it's they're trying, they're sneaking something, they're onto something. Game.
Mm-hmm. Also, to point out the insane bias, at the end of the first movie in the first book, Slytherin had won the House Cup by a mile. And then Dumbledore, the head of the whole school, who has more power than anybody in the school, is like, hang on a minute, we've got a few more points to dole out. 50 points here, 50 points. And he makes it so it's even. And everyone's like, oh, what's going to happen? And then he dunks on people. It's like 10 more points for Neville. Oh, they just magically win by 10 points. Wow, what a coincidence, Dumbledore. Shit was fucked up.
Okay, so this discussion, which could have been taken by Trekkies or by Lord of the Rings or Star Wars fans, but instead is about Harry Potter. It's not all for nothing, because we're mentioning this because of important real world events. For instance, right now, J.K. Rowling, who has been considered, a TERF, trans exclusive radical feminist, has been ostracized and in cases, I don't know what you call the transgender fatwa that's been put upon her, but she's basically, it's worse than a blacklisting. She's been threatened, really. J.K. Rowling's new book features a character murdered after being accused of transphobia. I wrote it before my own backlash, she says. There's a lot of people that disagree, thinking, what? You were writing a book about being a transphobe who dies before you came out as a transphobe? So, if anything, that's terrifying. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. But, okay, is J.K. Rowling... There's so many thoughts here, but is J.K. Rowling at fault? Because she created this world, right? She made it. She made the Gryffindor agenda. She promoted it. I don't know if she had ghostwriters from MI5 or Tavistock, but what's going on? Do you think that she made this? Isn't her own fault? Did she dig her own grave?
She dug her own grave for... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Wait. Are you talking about the transphobia thing or the Gryffindor and Slytherin thing? Or is it the same thing?
No. Shall we go a step further? Are they not inextricably linked? Is it not that by building up in the mind...
Are you saying Draco Malfoy is trans?
Well, if they called you Draco Malfoy, I just think it means more. Transformative years. During the transformative years, they're telling children, hey, you got to pick a house now. Are you going to be, a Gryffindor?
Well, they don't pick, the hat picks for them.
Well, but you also have, right, Doug? There's some choice, because Harry Potter legit was going to go Slytherin, and then Harry Potter was like,
not many people do that. Not many
Mark
people.
Zuman was really...
Yeah. You can't really choose. You kind of... I think it's only if you get 2 or more houses, and then you can choose. Like, Hermione Granger was between Ravenclaw and Gryffindor, and Hermione Granger, at the end of the day, chose Gryffindor. It's actually explained by J.K. Rowling herself. The reason Hermione chose Gryffindor is because even though Hermione is the smart one of the friend group, a part of Hermione Granger really wanted that glory that came along with it, because the very first time you meet Hermione Granger on the train, she goes, I hear Gryffindor is the best. And, you can clearly tell she cares about being the best at everything.
Yeah, because the CIA recruits from Gryffindor. It's the MI5 school. That's where they get the more Ministry of Magic's going for that. Unless you're a bookkeeper, Ravenclaw are bookkeepers. They're not going to... They're betas in the
most ministry people were in Slytherin, though.
Right,
most ministry workers were in Slytherin.
That was also because it was purposefully peppered that way throughout.
Yeah.
There was some
Green Road.
I like the idea that they're waiting for... They're trying to bring back the water snake. It's time. But okay, so in terms of the transphobia connections here, so we've created this world that's all about being good, not being the best. Imagine being able to overcome transphobia, like David Bowie, I keep referencing, could have rocked anybody. And instead we're in a generation that's worried about whatever body they have. I don't know if that's exactly an extensive metaphor, but what do you think about her trans exclusive radical feminism? Maybe you have a different take, but also what do you think about everyone who's against her? What do you guys think about this?
I think that she opened the door for her own self to get canceled. And speaking of canceling, if there was social media in the Harry Potter world, Slytherin would be canceled 24/7. Gryffindor would be given all kinds of exceptions 24/7 because, like you said, they're brave. But she was very up on her mountain on high, deeming who's moral and who's not moral in the older days of Twitter. And now that snake has gotten larger. It's come back to bite her, in my opinion. That's all I'm saying.
That snake is Slytherin. No, I don't know.
Well, yeah, pretty much. Slytherin. Doug, do you agree?
It's a full circle. It's a snake eating its own tail. No, I think that, it certainly was her own propagation of her own perspective. And I think that she certainly opened the door even more by then making a fictitious character not based off of her entire experience. So it seems like really great marketing. And it does call back into question what kind of connection she does have to that ghostwriting team that was whispered about during the Harry Potter years. And her other books, where I know she has at least one other one under another pen name. I don't know if this turf persecution novel is going to be under the same other pen name, but it's honestly, it feels like the strings are being pulled to a point where attention and money are going to flow. And I am, for one, tired of having these strings pulled via these channels. I'm ready for honest conversation that we have here.
What was the name of the group that Hermione did where she's like, oh, the poor house elves? And
Spew.
There you go. Spew.
That's right.
Turf. I'm just saying, you did it to yourself, JK.
Well, to be fair, Spew actually is one of those. Wait, hold on. I hear someone talking.
Yeah. Thank you.
Go, Mark, go.
I'm just thinking, we're talking about J.K. Rowling, clearly somebody who has some sort of understanding of mystery schools. And I think it's important to understand. Ooh, you're giving me a spotlight. Important to understand that there are factions at war. And it seems to me like after a recent conversation with Chris Knowles that there's like a cult of the siren that's pushing this transhumanist movement. And maybe that's why J.K. Rowling is so against it, because she's in the mystery school. She knows what's up. She knows there's warring factions, and maybe she's, a part of one of these factions secretly that recruits authors of her pedigree to, hint at this esoteric information and plant seeds of awakening in the. Now it feels like I'm talking to myself. Get back in there. Thank you.
Well, anyone jump in, but I mean, I think the trans movement's an interesting thing in of itself because it's a right-wing ideology. It's this idea of changing the body of the self in order to conform with the social identity, the social caste system that has.
What?
Yeah, the femininity is not a there's blackface and now there's femface, but it's not really being a woman, really, is it? Disagree. Tell me. That's my hot take.
I don't think it's the same thing at all. I think if someone identifies as whatever they feel they are, right? If someone who's born male and is like, hey, I feel like I'm female on the inside, they should be able to express that freely and do what they will. That my issue isn't trans people or the trans movement or the trans community. My issue is that there are men out there who will abuse trans situations. And there are females out there who will abuse trans situations. For example, there will be people who put themselves, there was a situation in the jail cell where 2 women ended up being pregnant in an all-women's jail because the person who claimed to be trans impregnated them. And now I'm not saying that, all trans people are doing this. I think it's a very, very rare case and a very small percentage. But the fact that no one's talking about this, is a problem, because if we're not going to talk about this, then it's just going to pretend as if it never happened. And, it could happen again. Again, it's a very rare case. It's a very the smallest, teeniest bit of percentage of trans people who would, even do this. Again, not all trans people would do this. In fact, most trans people have come out and condemned this, but at the same time, a lot of people aren't talking about it. And that's what's a huge issue.
There's
I
also
think
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good.
There's also just a financial and competitive edge in sports because you only see it really going in one-way traffic. You don't see women transitioning to men and then dominating the NBA, but you do see it the other way around where maybe you were a very athletic guy, but you're not at the top, and you still want to make a lot of money and dominate in sports. You can switch over to the women's, like in swimming or any other sport, and kind of sometimes literally dunk all over people. So that's another.
Right.
example.
I see the examples of exploitation, and I think that's an interesting qualifier, of course, that it's like it's not drugs, it's criminals or something that we're trying to, if it's not trans people, it's trans criminals. I get that. That's great. But the thing is, when we're trying to identify what it is, that's why I refer back to it as a right-wing ideology, because by changing the self to fit the social social definition of what a woman or a man is. So how I present to you is based on what society deems to be a man or a woman. That's not the same as saying I'm my own unicorn, right? That's a very different thing. And so if we're talking about a more radical approach, a more radical form of transfiguration, transhumanism, it could be that, hey, I am my own person. I am not your woman. I'm not your man. I'm not your buddy guy. I am just myself, and then I can be a citizen. I mean, there are problems with that as well. I think trad conservatives talk about this, the fear of emasculating hunter-gatherers, the disappearance of the trad mom. These are things that some people really like these things, so it's a bummer for them. But also there's the building of new systems that are coming, right? So we don't need to work towards conforming our identities to fit into social norms. To change myself to be a woman or to a man is still a change, because I'm becoming a man. Because everyone they started out as children, right? So to become these things is a process.
Well, it also sounds like these are two different things. You have what you mentioned, and you basically said this. There are two different perspectives, avenues, agendas happening here. One seems to be controlled and made to be something of a wedge for society in a disruptive sense. The other, however, seems to be on an individualized path where someone recognizes an avenue individually to become more definite in their own individuation, which then has them traverse through this gathering of identification in the way that they themselves would like to do, with no bearing on what society says is one or the other, just like you said. That, I think, is a wonderful and truly progressive thing. The other, I think, is I don't even know if it's real, because it seems so purposefully driven to be damaging and nothing else.
What do you mean by damaging?
I mean, well, and forgive me, because I want everyone to live their own best lives. But I don't think that I think that you should express yourself just like the song says, but express yourself with the instrument that you are. There's no need to make drastic changes to the instrument that you are to express the kind of femininity, masculinity, or any other kind of definition you would like to sharpen yourself as. I think the more sharp you can be as you are, that's the kind of pencil that can write the world the way that you'd want to. The other way seems to be, like you had said earlier, Andreas, conforming to some outside third party impressed upon style of being, which, I'll be honest, I don't identify with any kind of stereotypical way a man or a woman is. I'm stuck in a box for 2 hours or more a day. Like, this is not normal. Or is
right?
It?
But that's
okay. But that's okay. That's what I mean.
It's an interesting, though, because the thing is, people are saying they're going to be liberated from conforming, but then they're going to be conforming to another thing. I think I hear you there. Seth, you to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a problem of immaturity in general. Like you were saying, Andreas, we all start off as children, then we become a man or a woman. But there's another step to that process that no one talks about, which is you lose your femininity or your masculinity when you become elderly. You just become like a cartoon character. You know what I mean? So it's really about the internal world. Like, are you developing yourself? Are you appreciating change? So I hate being divided into progressive or conservative, because really nature takes care of this stuff. The human race, the species, the consciousness does progress, and some things are conserved. And that's kind of that's kind of being taken care of by nature or by God. But it's really about, are you developing yourself as a person? Are you creating art? Are you, sharpening your philosophy? And when you focus so much on your, I would say immutable characteristics, but now they're mutable. People are trying to change the things that aren't even changeable. That kind of becomes like an obsession. It's almost like a solipsism, where you're really supposed to be developing the internal self and becoming, a more robust person. So
it does seem like. Oh, I'm sorry.
Julian Huxley said that we're immature apes. You know what I mean? The founder of the UN said that we're immature apes, and the goal was to make us more and more immature to where we don't even have any body hair at all, and we're just completely in a childlike state physically and mentally. So it's sad to see people kind of take that hook, line, and sinker. We should be building up ourselves, like our persona, our personality.
Yeah, I hear also, though, Ashton, your point, and I think it's interesting because, the adolescence is like a Crusades war for this. There's like you either become a member of the conservative tradition and you go through that, their church and whatever they want to do to you, or you go through this new revolution, which could be vapor Sharia. It's this new thing. So, I mean, that kind of leads me on to the next question I have, which is that, Joe Rogan has been offending liberals more directly or more on purpose, I guess you could say, because he said, hey, Joe Rogan tells listeners to vote Republican, bashes Dems, COVID-19 heirs. When it's fair to bash one side for being wrong, it's fair to
But the Republicans are just as wrong. And I was kind of going over this recently. Trump still takes credit for the vaccine. Trump still pushes it as his vaccine. And now they're trying to claim that the vaccine is Trump's. And he's going along. He's like, yeah, this is my vaccine. I made this. And now that so many other reports are coming out about what the vaccine did, the CDC is blaming Trump and calling it Trump's vaccine again. At the end of the day, I think both parties work together. I think both parties are aligned with each other. I think the media is basically used to distract us and make us keep thinking this left versus right paradigm and keep pointing at each other. The more we think our neighbors who are slightly more left or slightly more right wing than us are our enemies, we actually don't pay attention to the real enemy, and that is the very establishment that controls us every single day. Right now, Sydney Sweeney from Euphoria, she's an actor who's in Euphoria, that show. She's in a lot of trouble right now with the media because her parents are supposedly Trump supporters, and she held a birthday party for her mother who turned 60, and her grandfather, her father, or whoever is wearing a Blue Lives Matter shirt. People are coming after her, and it wasn't even her. It was just her having family members of certain political beliefs. Again, I'm not a fan of the Republican Party or the Democrat Party. I think all politicians are trash. But just imagine living in a world where you can't even have a birthday party for your mother, or have a father who supports something that you may not support, or a mom who might support Trump, and people just come at you for it, right? We live in a world where we're very much distracted by either your left wing or right wing. And I think people are just too complex to be either or. I think people are too, it's funny, we're all very different human beings. You can't really put us in a box of either Democrat or Republican. I think the left versus right paradigm is definitely there to exists there to control how we think and how we see each other as human beings, and forget that we can be individuals beyond that. There's a great film that was made in 1995. I think it was 1995. It's called The Last Supper. It stars Cameron Diaz and a few other people. And it's about a bunch of college grad students who are liberal, and they invite over every white-wing person they can think of, have them over for dinner, and they basically decide at the end of the dinner whether or not they're going to kill them. And so next thing you know, they have all of these different tomato plants growing outside their yard, and they're basically killing all these people over time. And one of them is asking themselves, maybe we should give them a chance,
Ashton, someone's saying your cord's loose. Maybe there's a crickety noise.
A little static, yeah.
We get cricket wave in this.
It's okay.
It's Macbeth.
Hello.
It's better when you don't hold it.
Yeah, maybe don't hold it and see if that's
okay.
better.
Is this better? Basically, Last Supper is a great film. It's kind of goes over how politics really does divide us, and how if we were to have real conversation and real development of each other, we wouldn't be so hostile towards each other. And by the end, there's this high school student who is, I guess either I can't remember if she's pro-life or, pro same-sex marriage or whatever. But at the end of the day, at the end of the movie, Cameron Diaz is we cannot be killing all these people. This is ridiculous. One person says, no, we got to kill every single one of them. And it gets really hectic. And then they invite this sort of Alex Jones type character to the table. They meet him in an airport, invite him over for dinner. And he basically tells them, he's like, I basically an actor. Like, I do this for entertainment. Like, this, nothing of what I say is real. Most stuff you see on television or in politics, it's people who are just thriving off reactionary culture because that's what keeps them in power. And he's telling them all this, and like they're sort of just stunned, like they don't really know what to do at this point. And he looks at every single one of them and says, "Do you honestly think every single one of you agrees on every single thing and think that you're more you all think you're morally better than the other person because you all have different perspectives and different views, and you think you're in the right?" And so these students go to the kitchen to sort of discuss whether or not they want to kill him. Still, you're like, oh my gosh, this guy's actually telling us things that make sense.
It's too close. It's too close to inaudible. I think you should jump out of the room and jump back in because the clipping is so bad. Sorry. I really want to hear the story.
Cliffhanger. I mean, gotta finish it.
I love what she is saying though. It's all about that like dialectic, the either or choices. Like it totally stops your development because human beings are all shades of gray and there are no definite answers to any of these questions. As soon as you think you know, you're surely a fool. Like Socrates said, it's all about the journey of discovery. So people are tricked into thinking, oh, people have like 15 ways to describe themselves. I'm this binary. Like, it's like you turn a knob all the way to the left or all the way to the right on all these choices. It's like, imagine how boring that is if you're making like a D&D character. You're just like, everything to strength, intelligence, 0. It's just like, that's not the way people are meant to be.
Ashton, try your mic.
Hello.
That's better.
There we go.
Okay.
So the cliffhanger, they were going to kill this guy, and he's like, you guys aren't any better than us.
Alex Jones like, reactionary, who are you?
So basically this guy tells all of them that the world is based off reactionary culture. That's how politicians survive. It's how media survives because they need to scare people to keep in power, right? It's like the thing with Gavin McInnes that happened recently. Gavin McInnes, I'm not going to lie, it's something that I think it's very apparent, especially political media, especially conservative media from, where I was a few years back and before I left, is that a lot of these people want you to think that, don't get me wrong, I don't trust the system as much as the next guy, but in order for a politician to get elected, he has to tell people, the left, and the left wingers will say the right, and this sort of reactionary culture is what keeps people thriving in fear and voting for these people, hoping they can change something. It's like how the Democrat Party, it's like Roe versus Wade is overturned while they are in power, but yet they're still telling people to vote for them in November in order to protect them from, Roe versus Wade being overturned. Well, it's like, why didn't you do anything back then, And again, a lot of these pundits in media like Gavin McInnes faking a police raid just to get attention and then going, MIA for 3 or 4 days to scare people thinking he had an actual police raid. It's all for attention. Yeah, it's all for attention. And then, of course, he gets caught.
He was never going to reveal it either. His plan was to never reveal it and just to profit off of it. It's totally pathetic.
Exactly. And then people are like, well, if it was a prank, why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you say anything like right afterwards? Why did you wait around for 4 days until you got caught? He was going to take a break for an entire week, supposedly, and not say a single thing ever. But because he got caught, now he's saying it's a prank. And it's like, are you freaking kidding me? This is how all political media is. I worked in political media for 2 years. I see what these people do. They're no different than internet personalities. They all want to be famous. They all want the attention because we live in a world now where anybody can be famous off anything. It's really pathetic. And I think this definitely has made politicians and the media more powerful.
I agree with that. Sorry. Just also, it's not even so much to touch on the whole left versus right. It's not even to elect someone to try and change things, but it's really, I think, to defeat the evil people, right? Like, we don't look for even one thing to find common ground on. Well, I mean, I do all the time, and I'm sure all of us here do, but I would say the average person out there, you hear one thing that you disagree with, and that's all you need to know to cast this person out, have them destroyed, have them banished from society, at least the digital society, town square. I
think I just figured it out based on what both of you just said. So it's not about finding common interests. It's about finding common disinterest, or maybe it's about finding the least common interest, right? So you start to break things up into the smallest, most radical points. Then you get to things that are so obscure that they're just irrationally abstract to the average individual. You know, I mean, there are many people out there that are just like, what? If you should tell someone in Africa about what's going on with American politics, it's beyond sci-fi for what they're not used to it. And I think that plays into what Ashton just said about influencer culture, right? Because Trump, why is he so famous? Amongst all the other things recently for kids our age, he tweeted a lot, and so that was impressive. He said a lot of crazy things.
He was also really good at using Twitter against big tech, and that's I think why he got axed so quickly. Sorry to interrupt, but
no, I mean that's a fair point. We could go into a tangent on that. But my thought being that these interests that are so radical, it's because it gets more publicity. Because if you're like, hey, you know, this group is talking about, you know, breast cancer awareness in Minnesota, they're like, But if you're like, this guy wants to release a document on UFOs, it's all over Newsweek. Or this guy wants to show you what Trump did with Epstein, find out at 6. And like, so those kinds of stories are bigger and bigger and bigger until we get to the point where it's like, this trans man wants to have a child in Brazil with a penguin after the moon landing, and the box it just gets weirder and weirder and weirder.
Or even as simple as this actor has parents that like Trump, and that got how many retweets, how many likes, that's news. That's not news, by the way, but that's news.
Yeah, that's someone's family. Oh my goodness.
Oh no, they voted the way I didn't vote. Yeah.
Trump is like an old school confidence man. He's one of those guys that has a special way to shake your hand where he like makes your hand feel small, you know, and it comes like from above and like squeezes your pinky in so you feel like you have a little boy hand. And he was using those tricks on Twitter, and Twitter is mostly young people. And he came in with like these like 1930s like power hustle, like confidence man moves, and just nobody on Twitter was used to that. People had a certain way of tweeting, and he came in with like, you know, his like generational, you know, way of like dominating the room. And it worked for a while, but now I think people are starting to see, you know, once you're defeated, you know, and he can't take another loss by admitting that now he doesn't like the vax.
He's not defeated. I think he's in on everything that's happening. I don't trust him. I don't like him. I see him the same way that I see Biden and Obama and Clinton and Bush. I think
he's a little different. But they're all different because I mean they're from warring. It's like Game of Thrones, so they're all different and interesting in their own ways. But certainly none of them are on our side.
Trump Targaryen or whatever.
Trump Targaryen.
Yeah. That's the other thing. Who's the good guy in Game of Thrones? It's some random villager getting blown up by a dragon.
Trumparian could be it. But I mean, so if there's
the House of Trump, the best house.
It does kind of feel like a warring factions thing. Do you think it's not a warring faction? You think he literally is just playing a full-on game? Ashton, you were thinking?
I mean, I think it's all a giant game, honestly. Again, why are so many things happening that the Democrats claim to support? You know, like it goes back to my Roe versus Wade argument. How could the Democrats just let this happen? They could have easily avoided this happening. And we saw a lot of this stuff happen, you know, during Trump's era too, where red flag laws were being threatened. And all of these Trump supporters who claim to support the Second Amendment were like, Trump can do no wrong. This is all 8D chess. It's just, at the end of the day, these politicians don't care about you, whether you're Republican, Democrat, whatever. They want you to feel like you have more power than you actually do.
I think you said it right. Everything's a game right now. They are all players. They might not all come from the same side of the board, but they are definitely all players. And yes,
isn't the bastard the prince, right? Isn't that how that works in Game of Thrones? Usually the bastard's the prince. That's how that goes.
What we really need to nail
hidden child, yes.
Which side?
I think Trump's the Antichrist.
But which?
I mean, you're not the first to suggest.
Well, I don't think he is, but honestly, I've considered it in the back of my head. Listen,
why not Obama? Aren't they both kind of?
Listen, Trump has all of the personality traits that, like, I would not be surprised if he was the Antichrist. Okay, I mean, listen, I don't think he's the Antichrist, but there are a lot of things that he, like, for example, the Tower of Babylon, how he's able to command a room.
The symbols of Apollo.
The name. Have you seen Tower? It's better. Rolls off
and think about it. With Joe Biden, with Joe Biden in power, I'm seeing more and more leftists, which Trump was still in office, and I get it. You want gas prices to be lower, but I wouldn't be surprised if Trump, you know, came in won the election in 2024. Everyone basically, because they already treat him like he's Jesus with QAnon. Like they think he's going to come in on a white horse and save everybody. When you have everybody
Stormy Daniels.
I think it would actually be a Tyrannosaurus Rex, not a white horse. But
I mean, it's true.
With the machine.
The Liberty, Guns, Trump, Beer, and Q, the LGBTQ movement in America. There's like 2 LGBTQs, and they're in opposition, but they're diametrically in opposition. So they're at one side, you're like, oh, the world's coming to change us, and the other side, they're like, trust the plan. That feels like that same thing. Like, and the adolescent.
That's what I'm saying. The whole trust the plan thing sketches me out. I'm like, and then you see this documentary, and it's like some guy in like Korea who like is addicted to anime porn, and that's QAnon the entire time.
How I relax.
I can see it.
People got to realize 5D chess, you're the pawn. Like you don't root for either one of the players in the 5D chess game because they're just knocking people like you, your businesses off the board. I mean,
that's pretty decent. So, but okay, Trump documents bear hallmarks of closest held U.S. secrets, classified documents, et cetera, et cetera. What do you guys think about the picture they had? Oh, look at the floor covered in secret classified documents. I mean, am I jaded? I'm just bored these days, or is this serious? Is this more serious?
I think it's all a game.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I definitely question whether or not it has any actual value. If it did, they wouldn't put it on Twitter. I wouldn't see it. They wouldn't be like, look, we got it. Well, this is really important. They wouldn't do that. Oh, or maybe they would. Maybe we are in an early stage of idiocracy where they might. I don't know.
I think we're in a late stage of idiocracy, Doug. Well, here's my question. And, I'm always open to different ideas. I'm not like, this is how it is. Is it all one big elaborate game with strings coming down from the ceiling and everyone's a puppet and Trump is playing his part, but he's part of the machine, whatever the machine is? Because you have to admit, he's been treated wildly different than any other president in the last 20, 30 years. He's the only sitting president to be banned off social media, right? He got banished. He's vilified every day in the media. I don't see Biden getting that treatment from the media. I don't see Obama, Clinton, Bush. Bush
got a lot.
Like a G now. Like now he's everyone loves him.
He's
like,
teaching a master class on presidentiality
and
not how to choke on a pretzel. Come on.
Yeah, now. Come on.
How to paint dogs.
Well, what do you think about that, Doug?
You can't do it yourself. You need others around you to get it
out. George Bush
is
is not the first dictator to paint dogs, but yeah.
I will say
then how come he wasn't banned off Twitter? If he's such a piece of shit.
Because they need a villain. But think about it. You can't say, oh, the country's run by Nazis after 8 years of the black guy that everybody loves. You need to basically put together this evil suit. I'm serious. Everybody loved Obama, even after his drones. Well, not everybody. But most people.
They needed enough people.
Listen, 2.3, most people, even after his drone strikes, loved Obama. So you can't tell a bunch of people, oh, wow, this country's run by a bunch of Nazis. They'll never believe it. So what they do is they get this guy, Donald Trump, who is the epitome of everything that,
at least international optics, all the international optics around the world.
He's a cis white man who's a billionaire.
He's good in the uniform. That's what it is.
I'm telling you, think about it. He was the villain they had to make to freak everybody out, to think that their lives are in mortal danger, that everything they work so hard to liberate in moral danger. So what's going to happen is they have a guy like Trump in here for office for 4 years. They give him 4 years, scare the crap out of everyone. Half the country is terrified of him, sees him as Hitler. The other half sees him as Jesus. You start this whole feud between these two groups of people trying to kill each other off in the middle of the streets in these riots. And I know this because I documented this stuff. And after 4 years of him, you get a new president in, and all of this, anarchy happens. Or I don't want to say anarchy because I'm technically, by definition, anarchist. But people are basically destroying each other in the middle of the street, and all this lawlessness is happening. So what's the country going to do? They're going to say, okay, if you want to act like this, if you want to be crazy, we're going to really push the hammer down on you guys, and we're going to bring in more law and order, and we're going to be more controlling over you. I think Trump was the villain they needed to get everything started.
I think Joe Biden is another villain they need to continue everything pushing down the road. And nobody ever would have supported Joe Biden if it wasn't for a fear of Trump. And in that same sense, I think most people wouldn't have supported Trump if it wasn't for a fear of Hillary Clinton and the New World Order. That's why I supported Trump, and I turned a blind eye to a bunch of horrible stuff like Stormy Daniels and just the fact that I'm from New York. I
Yeah.
know who Donald Trump is. He's a scumbag. He's been on Saturday Night Live a bunch, of consorts with the worst people in the world. You know, a video just came out of him making out with Rudy Giuliani and drag and just all this insane stuff. But I was so worried about what Hillary Clinton would do and screw up like what my plans in my life. Turns out Trump did way worse things than Hillary was even rumored to do.
Yeah.
Like, she might start a war with Russia. Trump's like, I'll literally shut down the whole country. You know, it's like way worse than I was even afraid of. And it you know, it's you know.
I'm guilty. I'm guilty of the same thing. I'm guilty of the exact same thing. Because listen to me, when I was in school, I went to a very liberal campus, and there was riots. Okay, people were trying to burn down their own campus because some right-wing gay guy wanted to speak. Okay, and I looked around me. I'm like, this is absolutely insane. This is crazy. Like, free speech is important. And I came from a fairly liberal family that I didn't very get along with very well. So I had this sort of craving for family values on top of wanting a community and identity. And I'm watching all this happen around me. I'm like, oh, well, this is interesting. College Republicans. Well, I've never considered myself Republican. Let me check this out. And next thing you know, I'm down this wormhole surrounded by people who claim to be pro-free speech and anti-tyranny and anti-cancel culture, only for me to get basically taken in by a media manager who controlled everything I could say, everything I could do, everything I could wear, eat. You have it. So it was just really interesting for me to have that experience. And again, like you're so desperate for a sense of belonging and a sense of reality that you sort of have to stick to one side or the other, because during that time you couldn't be nuanced. You're either this side or this side. And unfortunately, both were very controlling in telling you who you could be and what you could do. And it was very restricting from 2016 to 2019. It was not a good time.
Well, you're the vanguard, and this is the vanguard. People who can admit they made a mistake and learn from it, which is like a lost art. It's a superpower. If you can admit you got conned, somebody was smarter than you in that moment, they're not going to be able to use that same trick on you again. People who are still supporting Trump and still following the plan, those people are out of the game. You know, those people are not.
Well, because they don't want to admit that they messed up. They don't want to admit they made a mistake, and that's kind of what I dedicate. So I obviously dabble more in things like D&D and fan fiction, Harry Potter. I've changed career paths, I guess, because it makes me happier. But there are times I'm on TikTok and I'll see something like, I gotta talk about this. For the past 2 days, Andreas actually reached out to me about. Sorry, I have a really bad lisp. I reached out to me about this and said, I really liked your last video talking about what happened to you in conservative media, because no one else is talking about this. It's very rare. You see all these girls who are like, I went from left to right. Look how cute I am. And
it's like conversion, like homosexual conversion therapy videos. Like, I'm fixed now. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, the thing is, I've been left, I've been right, I've been all over the political, chart, whatever you want to call it. And I'm just sort of nothing, but I feel like it's sort of my duty now to kind of call out what political media is doing to teenagers and young adults and how they're trapping them. Because let me tell you something, going back to the Sydney Sweeney thing, if they try firing Sydney Sweeney and canceling Sydney Sweeney, you know what's going to happen is you're going to have a bunch of Euphoria fans and a bunch of Sydney Sweeney fans say, we don't like how they're handling this. We don't like cancel culture. And Charlie Kirk's going to be waiting in the shadows, waiting for them to hop on a plane to one of those stupid Turning Point USA seminars that he gives out. I swear, this is how they get them.
Well, if it's all a game, and it's all planned out, then what's to say that whole fiasco with her parents at the birthday wasn't on purpose to get attention on the show and get more views? Because like they say, there's no news like bad news. Maybe
you're right. Maybe you're absolutely right.
That's so scary.
That's what I'm saying, is you can never trust anything that's happening. But I'm telling you right now, like, this is how they convert, kids into these bipartisan cults. And I do believe all politics is cult, left and right. But if it's nothing is truly a bipartisan issue, but they want you to think these things are bipartisan issues because they want you for votes, they want you for power, and they want your money. Because you can't control people if they don't believe in bipartisans, they don't believe in the ideology.
What's the solution then? Because there's only going to be 2 candidates in 2024. What do you tell
I personally believe in individualism. I believe in people, going their own way. Frankly, I don't think the way that I would sort things out is never going to happen. But this is how I think the country should. Again, I'm a tiny blonde girl. I'm not going to change the world anytime soon, okay? But this is how I would change the world if I could. If I had just like the Thanos snap in the palm of my hand.
How would you make it great, Slytherin? Yes.
This is how I would do it. I would say vote on individual values and not vote for a person or a political party. Why can't we vote on simple, just like, why can't we like have bills sent out saying, hey, would you want us to use this tax money for this or that? Would you want us to have this certain issue be dealt with this way? We don't do it that way. We just vote for us one person or the other, hoping they're going to plan out everything they promise, and they never do.
We have to get rid of the notion of you can't vote for someone who can't win, because it's that kind of thinking that prevents good people from winning. So like, why didn't I support Rand Paul in 2016? He's not perfect, but at least he adheres to his own principles, and he's a good person by my judgment. So we have to get rid of the thinking of like, well, you're just going to steal a vote from Trump, then we're going to wind up with another Democrat. It's like, no, I refuse to engage in that kind of loser thing. Like, I want to actually only support people who I believe are principled and who align with me.
Why are we voting for the lesser of two evil? Oh, sorry.
Exactly.
No, and why? That's right. Why are we even playing within that?
Yeah,
kind
vote for
of
the most
arena
evil.
thing?
Sorry.
Why?
Slytherin.
I think you should
Go
vote for
up from
Salazar
there.
personally. Okay.
Vote for Salazar Slytherin. And here's the thing.
Mhm.
Why do we think, I gotta vote for the lesser of two evils? The fact that you know they're both evil, that should bother the absolute shit out of you.
I don't want to
It's
vote for either of them.
like, why am I, like, every 2 to 4 years, you walk into a voting booth, it's like, should I vote for the warmonger who's paid off by lobbyist corporations, or the corporate paid warmonger with the red tie? Which one should we vote for, you guys? And that's all we're basically dealing with. And the truth is,
red. I don't know. I thought.
And there's no quick fix anyhow. It's not like we're going to elect like some miracle guy that's going to fix everything in 4 years. So it's like, it's all about changing our attitudes, realizing that we're our own leaders, and only supporting people whose principles, or who at least have principles, period, aren't just political salesmen.
Couldn't you argue that the system will never allow itself to change?
Absolutely.
Because I'll be honest, not to be a pessimist, but I don't see shit changing no matter what happens.
You know, they need our consent.
I mean, you can't play in the system if it's.
They used to tell boys not to do sissy stuff, and then they got them GI Joes, and that really worked well for Vietnam. So I can imagine that this is another one. They're like, hey, if you don't want to be if you're transphobic, we've got this really conservative enlist. You know, it's enlist in one or the other. So.
They do it all for us. We're the audience. So if we're not giving them the ratings that they're looking for, they have to adapt to what our desires are. We're just accepting the dialectic, the two-party dialectic they've been feeding us. As soon as we just
easy.
This is
it's planned out for us because we're babies now. We're all babies.
You know, Ashton, what's scary? This is the perfect transition to Corpse Bride. So anyway, if you think about it. Think about it, right? No, ideologically, is Corpse Bride...
did you watch my video? That's my latest videos on Corpse Bride.
Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. So here's the thing about it, though. Yeah, I did. Do you want to elaborate on the idea that his choice is not his own? You know what I mean?
Yes. So I just did a video on Corpse Bride, and I basically explained that it's one of my favorite movies of all time, one of my favorite Tim Burton films, and I think everybody who watches this film by the end is thinking, why didn't he end up with Emily? Why did he choose Victoria over Emily? Because you can't watch that film and not think this guy belongs with the dead girl. Honestly, he really does belong with her. And the reason I came down to it is that, one, it's not Victor's story. Victor has no real character arc because he's not making any decisions or life changes for himself that would lead him to choose Emily. Instead, he chooses the safer option. He chooses the option that, even though she does come from a world that even he is like, oh, this is boring, this is bland, it's full of people that absolutely hate him and treat him like a loser, at least it's a world he knows how to navigate. Whereas Emily, the Corpse Bride, is definitely not the safer option. She's different. She's something he's not used to. But at the end of the day, it's definitely Emily's story and not Victor's. It was about her personal change, her personal development, and how she grew from her choices and her own decisions. That's why what it comes down to is Victor is the guy who basically chose the safer option because he didn't want to choose something that might have been more freeing, more lively, because he wouldn't be used to it.
Right, and so this is that kind of Hans Christian Andersen Little Mermaid's tale as well. This idea that she sacrifices herself instead of getting to be loved in what she wants. But it's also, I think, a good relative metaphor for America. Victory, choosing the wrong spoils, going for the safer option, and this is the lesser of two evils in a sense. And it's represented by, it's actually more terrifying than a Corpse Bride. That's, I think, the American experience right now, or maybe the world experience. But
America, more terrifying than a Corpse Bride.
Cole, I know you have some thoughts on Corpse Bride.
Put me on the spot now, Andreas. I like that. I think the point about the safer choice definitely reflects in humanity, because most people will do what's comfortable, right? Like, you know, that picture where everyone's Zig Heiling Hitler and the one guy refuses. You could have the same thing with the last 2.5 years. There's amazing examples of that. So I would agree. I've never thought of the Corpse Bride. Now, first of all, it's been like 15 years since I've watched the movie, so I wish I had refreshed before we did this, but I didn't have time.
Shame on you. Oh, yeah.
I know, but I never considered the Corpse Bride to be the protagonist. That's a cool idea. Now I'm going to have to go back and watch it, because I want to see if I think that's the case, and I can't right now because I really do have to rewatch it.
Dude, Victor's so vapid. It's like it's his whole deal. He's just.
You're saying he's
a bit vapid. You know, he's like the ditzy princess in a relative fairy tale. You know, he's the two-dimensional damsel in distress in a lot of.
Well, what can Ashton? Can you refresh my memory on just the Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 of the Corpse Bride and Johnny Depp's character?
Okay, so Johnny Depp's character, Victor, he starts off this very bland, dull world. When you first meet him, he is obviously terrified. Wait, hold on. Can you guys all hear me? Gotta make sure. When you first see him, he's very terrified of commitment. He's terrified of risk. He's terrified of relationships. He doesn't know if the marriage is going to work out, because it's a betrothed marriage, like it's a planned marriage. So he's very like shaky all the time. He's very nervous. When he meets Victoria, he's nervous not because he's attracted to her, but more so he's afraid of marriage overall. So when he messes up his wedding rehearsal, he runs off into the forest, accidentally marries a corpse bride of all things, shows up in the land of the dead, and it sort of explains Emily's whole story, how she was murdered by her ex-fiance who like stole her family's money and whatnot. Horrible guy. She was kind of just waiting there for someone to marry her and love her, and that sort of explains what her character dynamic is that she's was waiting for someone to save her rather than love herself. And then Victor is like, I don't want to be with this person, so he basically convinces her to go up to the land of the living. He tricks her because he says he's going to go see his parents when he's not. He basically decides that he is going to marry Victoria, not because he loves Victoria, but because he recognizes that if he can get to marry Victoria, he won't be stuck with a corpse bride, because he's so freaked out by the corpse bride, which is very understandable. But then, when they go back down to the land of the dead, you can sort of see this dynamic between Victor and Emily build up, and you realize just how much more in common he has with the corpse bride. He clearly has more affections for her, more emotions for her. And then he actually agrees to marry her, which requires him to actually kill himself by drinking poison. And then in the land of the living, Victoria finds out she has to marry this guy named Lord Barkis, who is like who turns out to be Emily's ex-fiance who killed her, and he's the obvious villain of the film. And Victoria realizes she has to marry Victor, because if she doesn't marry Victor, she's stuck with Lord Barkis. So Victor and Victoria don't even actually love each other. They sort of just see each other as the better option. But at this point, Victor is obviously in love with Emily, promises to marry her. They go back up to the land of the living to have this wedding. At this point in time, Victoria and Lord Barkis are already married, but Lord Barkis is pissed off because Victoria's family doesn't actually have any money, and he was just in it for the money. And then there's this whole feud where Victoria shows up to the wedding, Lord Barkis follows her, tries to pull her away, but then Emily recognizes Lord Barkis. She stands up for herself against him, and then Lord Barkis accidentally kills himself by drinking the poison. He's now dead. Then he's taken off to be just, beat up by the other dead people. And then Emily's like, you know what? Like, I'm cool now. Like, I finally stood up to my ex-fiance. I'm doing well. I'm good. Like, I don't need to get married. I don't need to, marry somebody to make me feel better about myself. You guys can marry each other. And Victor's like, oh, okay. Even though it's he seems more adamant about marrying Emily now, which is kind of funny to me. But he's like, oh, okay. So him and Victoria end up together in the end. And Emily,
I think you're hitting a crack up again. You might want to jump out and jump back in, and we'll all. No, I think you're gonna have to jump.
How about now?
Oh, is that good? That might be good.
Okay, so Emily's soul is now free.
No, it's not. It's not. I just believed. Just jump out, jump back in. We'll pause and reflect for a second. My God.
Well, while we reflect and pause, I do remember from the beginning all of the people that are alive are less lively than the dead chick. So that was a nice touch by Tim Burton.
Yeah,
I
it's
appreciate
interesting.
that.
They do give that, he's more. It seems I always felt like he was dead. It was kind of, or is he in between life and death or something?
Oh, Victor, absolutely. That's the vibe I always got from him, because it's like he sort of sees like this life that he lives as very boring, very dull. The underworld, I guess, the land of the dead, is more lively, ironically enough. And yeah, but she basically, her soul is set free. She's free with herself. She's at peace. And Victor doesn't really get a choice in the end. I feel like Victor would have stayed with Emily if Emily was like, I'm good, in the end. But yeah, it's definitely a story of like finding inner peace and, standing up for yourself. And Victor never really gets to do that because, Victor does do that, but it's because of meeting Emily. But he ends up with Victoria, which I think is just the wrong choice overall.
Clearly, Amber Heard, right? That's what that's all about.
What? No.
Amber Heard is Victoria, right?
Amber Heard wasn't.
Andreas? No, I don't know.
Amber Heard wasn't even in the picture until like I think
Amber Heard would be the guy that killed
Diaries,
the corpse bride.
Yeah, probably.
Female version.
Well, okay. Speaking of chauvinistic males, and no, I'm just kidding. But this story came out. No, not that one. Here it is. No, here. Is it here? Have I lost it? There we go. Leonardo DiCaprio. What's his problem? Girlfriend Camila Morone broke up after 4 years of dating. Here's an interesting graph somebody made about his relationships, and you can actually see the lines from 18 to 23.
Gotta be like his age and their age.
No, it's an interesting. The girlfriend will be girlfriend until 24, 25 tops. 25 is the top age he'll date. He refuses to date any woman over 25. Maybe not on purpose. I don't know. But what do you guys think about, and gals, what do you think about that? Is he
trapped by a childhood trauma? He's trapped, and like repeating this cycle. Peter Pan,
Right. You think it's a Peter Pan complex?
Wasn't he raped by like a Nickelodeon director when he was like 13 years old or something? I've seen some videos of him palling around with some older guys, and it seems super sus.
But is it normal or is it weird, or what do you think? Is it reasonable that he's a lot of money, so he's dating younger women, or is it a problem that he can't?
It's sad. Yeah, no, it's sad. Yeah, because he's he's looking to. There's a great F. Scott Fitzgerald quote that says, "Sentimentalism is like you have a bowl of candy and you want to plastic wrap it and never have it be touched, and romanticism is you want to eat the bowl of candy over and over again and have it keep being replenished." So that's like a romantic life that he's attempting to lead, but it's going to become more and more tragic as he gets older and they stay the same age.
Oh gosh.
What you got?
It's like that scene in a what is it? Dazed and Confused. You know what I love about high school girls? The older I get, the same age they stay. And it's such a gross line. It's so gross. But it's like there are people like that who do hang around high schools and like wait for.
But it's sad, and even like pedos and stuff like that is sad. Like I don't have like the anger reflex. I'm just like, dang, it's just like the never ending cycle of trauma. People getting traumatized and they traumatize other people and they just never develop. You know what I mean? This is a huge problem with our society. Is like men don't develop. They're not forced to overcome their trauma. They're not forced to go through challenges. We don't have rights of manhood and stuff like that you have to overcome.
Well, like
so
Bill
what was
Maher,
the reason they broke up? What was the reason they broke up? Like, why did they?
Did she age out or what?
That's basically, no one's got that far. I haven't heard him say his answer. That they, basically it's just he's got like 13 girlfriends he's broken up with in the past 10 years or something.
Oh my god.
That are all. I mean, I think it's from 2016 or something on. So I mean, I don't know. There's been a few stories about relationships, but he doesn't have kids with anybody either, right? So I think that might be a thing. I mean, maybe he isn't willing. I think the thing is he's not willing to go through the next step. The next step is where you grow old with them and you have a kid or something. But that's like, so, I was gonna say Bill Maher doesn't want to have a family. Is it trad versus LGBT or something? Does he have no options in between? Maybe he doesn't want to have a family and become an old man or something like that.
I think it has nothing to do with the trad. Like where is trad versus LGBT? It's funny because I feel like people who are like stereotypically left wing are more trad than the actual trad people. Like,
right wing ideology.
Like I'll meet left wingers who are actually in happy like marriages and happy relationships and are having children, and then you got all these people like right wing pundits are the most just sad people I've ever met because they all talk about like strong relationships and strong families, and they're all cheating. They're all cheating on their wives. They're all falling apart. They never live to their values, because the truth is these people aren't with other people for the sake of being in love with someone. They're being with someone because they feel like they have to and they have no other option. And that to me is really sad. Like I went through the exact same phase where I've dated people that I should have never dated, because I just felt like this pressure to get married as soon as possible and have children as soon as possible. And so I would date the wrong people because I was so desperate to be in a relationship, to have that trad lifestyle. And I feel like once you give all of that ideology up, and once you start thinking and start living for yourself, eventually the right person will come along that you'd want to start a family and have kids with. But you can't really do that until you sort of live for yourself first. Because if you're living just to like do what you think you're supposed to do, you're never going to truly find it, because you're just running in circles with your head cut off.
Yeah, it's not really trad unless you've gone the other path and then you make the choice. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people live the trad lifestyle, but they're actually normies. That's just their default option. And a lot of people who come from big cities like me, they default into like the Playboy lifestyle, like Bill Maher. You know, if Bill Maher now was to decide to marry like a 50-year-old woman and settle down, that would be trad AF.
Yeah, right. That would literally be trad. Well, I mean, but trad doesn't necessarily need to be a good thing or a bad thing, I guess. But here's a thought on mind control. Cops nab man accused of killing 4 in Ohio over mind control. 2-day manhunt for the suspect accused of gunning down 4 people in 2 houses in Ohio, allegedly because he believed he was the victim of mind control, has ended with his arrest in Kansas. Stephen Marlowe, 39, was nabbed in Lawrence shortly before 9 p.m. on Saturday, when a police officer on alert for the fugitive spotted his vehicle and followed him into a parking lot. The arrest came a day after Marlowe allegedly went on a rampage 650 miles away in Butler Township outside Dayton, Ohio, killing Clyde Knox, 82, and his wife, Eva, 78, in one home, and Sarah Anderson, 41, and her daughter, Kayla Anderson, 15-year-old high school student, in another. This isn't the first violent crime in recent memory in this neighborhood, the Butler police said. We are working to determine if this was any motive to this tragedy. And apparently he said that, on a TikTok video, he identified himself as a targeted individual and was a victim of mind control. Said he was planning a counterattack, would gladly die to expose this. Targeting individuals is a phrase used by a community of people connected over the internet who suffer from paranoid delusions of mind control and gang stalking. They may believe that nefarious forces are using implemented chip or sonic waves to torture them. In Porter's case, he claimed attackers used, quote, ventriloquism to control their thoughts. Marlowe will now be extradited to Ohio to face charges.
So the Imperious Curse?
Yeah, the Imperious Curse.
Legitimately, pretty like the Harry Potter Imperious Curse. He's being controlled by it. Bringing it back, baby. Hell yeah.
But I mean,
he's not, well, his body's not being controlled. He's being influenced.
But he's being ventriloquist.
Right? Yeah, he's saying he didn't want to kill these people like the Idle Hands movie, I think that was his point. But maybe he goes into a trance and forgets it happens, but I didn't read that either, so.
Well, the targeted individual phenomenon.
You did say ventriloquism. You're absolutely right, yeah.
The whole phenomenon is so interesting because I've known people who are like literally victims of that. I knew a guy who was a personal trainer, wasn't interesting, wasn't like some truther. I mean, this was before like trutherism, but he really thought that there's listening devices, and he was over at my place one time and he's like, there's people next door listening to us. And I was like, it's an 80-year-old couple next door. And he's like, trust me, I know how this goes. And I was just like, wow, this guy is like not connected to reality. But I have had the feeling myself of like, maybe like, because I'm so outspoken and I've been minor celebrity for this and that, and challenged authority. So like it is kind of like this complex where I feel like maybe I've been targeted with EMFs and stuff like that, but I have to keep myself in check, but I've seen people like go totally beyond the pale with it. But I've had weird medical things, like when my left eye just stopped working, and that was the day they turned on the 5G. So it's so easy to make these, when your life becomes about making these connections and trutherism, it is easy to like write yourself into the story. And it's really scary when you meet someone who's like gone, fully gone with it. The
several chapters in. Yeah.
So
several books in.
That's my thought also. So do you think it's like completely just like it's psychosomatic or a placebo effect or something that effect?
Well, the thing is like DARPA has all these patents to torture you with like electric waves and stuff like that. Like, I have a theory on all that, which is that DARPA just files 1 million patents because they're using our money to do it, and they don't really have any of that technology. But I'm sure they do have like 1 or 2 things, and it's something they would do if they had the ability to just torture innocent people they don't like. They would do it, but a lot of it is like self-aggrandizement. Like I'm just some reggae guy. Like I would even be on the radar, So, but
the Cuba ray gun experience, because it's not a
Right.
ray
So
gun.
interesting.
That's real.
In Spain last
Maybe we don't know if it's real. That could be
No, it's real. There was a CIA guy who's actually been trying to sue the CIA for
Really?
several years because his whole life was shut down after being assigned into Cuba, having this experience several nights in a row. He goes into detail about it. He's like, it was clear. It was like a cone. I could step out of it and feel totally fine. And as soon as I'd laid back down, boom. And he suffered severely, still is. It's a wild story.
I've had that exact same feeling where, like, if I got in bed, I would start to have like a panic attack for no reason. I'd have to get out of my bed and like go sleep on the couch or something. But I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's proven, you know.
The Spanish embassy 2019 had a problem where the consul were bleeding out their ears from active denial systems. So there are active ADS active denial systems. I think it can active denial system probably has a wiki page.
Scary,
that's what they like to call it now.
Shouldn't we have like a Geneva Convention or something so people can't do this?
Right. But they do have ray guns and stuff. But I don't know. So what do you think about mind control in general, though? Do you think that there's a number of these guys that are this ventriloquist thing? You think that there's, you know, I mean, because this is kind of the, you know, Slytherin magic, the science behind magic. I mean, this is all stuff.
Manchurian candidates. Yeah,
That's exactly what I was going to say, Doug. It sounds just like that.
Well, there certainly are programs documented. We got the FOIA papers out, and the CIA has been running several, not only just remote viewing programs, but mind control programs. It's going on. How effective they are and how effectual their individual agents or programs are is another question. Ingo Swann, actually, who helped train people in the Stargate program for the CIA, writes extensively not only about the U.S. program, but the Soviet program during that time, and how the Soviets have a completely different way of considering what they call the biodynamic system. It is not only the mind, but the mind, the body, and the biomagnetic field that we are, the electromagnetic field that we are, and biomagnetic field that we're producing all of the time in flux, depending on our environment, and both interior and exterior. They have a completely different way about going about doing what they're doing. And they apparently did it so well that it spooked the CIA into trying to do it their way. And they really struggled. Their way, the Western way, body and mind are separate. And the mind is primary in terms of control of the body, which, you know, discounts the system and the gestalt that comes from working from a full system rather than its apparent dominant parts. Yeah. I mean, but it's real. It's totally real. It's totally real.
Remember the guy who rolled up to the White House, shot his cell phone, and lit himself on fire? I mean, that was kind of interesting.
Kind of interesting. Yeah.
Do you guys remember that?
Yeah, right. And there are the active denial systems that are pretty crazy that could be used for, you know, Los Angeles County said they were using them in their penitentiary system. So
are these the systems where they like talk to you to the point where they reflect your voice back, where you like, I can't get discombobulate?
No, let me pull it up again.
Yeah. What are active denial systems?
So here, active denial systems are, did this work? I can see it. Okay, active denial systems, non-lethal directed energy weapons, but they've been used to melt brains in monkeys and bleed people's eyes out. And people did die in Spain because of an active denial system in 2019. I think it was summer of 2019. But they were used in the Afghanistan war. August 20th, 2010, the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department announced its intent to use the technology to control incarcerated people. So they're literally just blasting people that are misbehaving in the detention center in Pitness. And then they've been using it beyond intent to break up prisoners after 2014. Vehicle-mounted systems, the Marine and police were deployed. So there are vans and vehicles that have these laser ray guns with a microwave wavelength of 3.2 millimeters, 100 kilowatt output power, 95 gigahertz at a target, and can cause pea-sized blisters, you know, radiation burns, microwave burns, skin burns, and things like that. So
it's the one where they make you feel like your skin's on fire.
Right, but they can also just go right through you and hurt from the inside, or make you sad or angry. Or they used these in the 70s on protesters of nuclear power plants in Britain, and they just made them sad. But apparently, a number of people had after that birth defects and miscarriages that were continued on, and cornea damage without even seeing the light, you know, because it's just rays that are going through you. So. So active denial systems are very real and they're pretty terrible, you know.
Horrible.
But there was also, in terms of hypnosis, there was another one I wanted to bring up, which was the gravity hypno, allergic to gravity.
Oh yeah,
So-
yeah.
So
That's
this lady can't get out of bed. She spends 23 hours in bed, faints up to 10 times a day because of a rare condition that recently happened to her after 2015 or something. That her heart starts to go too fast whenever she stands up, and she just literally has to stay in bed every day. I forget the deal.
What if she goes to a basement and stands up? Or like, what if she goes to like a low G environment and stands up? I mean, how do they know it's just not like
One of those like
circulation?
interior air tubes, you know, where you're just like
Yeah, that's what I mean.
This
Like, have
is-
they tested this out in different
well,
environments?
If anyone would have been tested, it's her. Because check this out: in May 2018, she was medically discharged from the military due to her illness. So she was in the military, and then all of a sudden, she leaves the military with this inability to stand without her body throwing. I mean, obviously, if you pass out, your heart goes back to a regular state. So this is like a conscious, subconscious level. This isn't just disease or something that's happened to her. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's
Mind
like a
control.
post-hypnotic suggestion. Once you're upright, you will feel and eventually faint. I mean that you can do that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. So, but do you think that people are being? Do you think there's a reason why they would be doing this? Like to someone in the military, like try to suppress their data, keep them silent. They can't get out of bed, and they seem crazy, and yet we have to read about it.
I feel like they would just disappear them, though. I mean, who gives a shit, you know?
Right.
People get disappeared every day, every hour.
Right.
But she's
They
safe.
had,
She's safe in a bed for the rest of her life. They followed their promise or something.
It sounds like a
That's
weird
true.
diagnosis, but I guess they tested everything else. It reminds me of like the brain cloud from Joe versus Volcano. It's like you didn't get a second opinion. You're allergic to gravity.
Mark,
That must be it. Yep, I guess.
Mark, I'm seeing some stuff that's on Corpse Bride I didn't see in the private chat. So you want to
Don't worry
elaborate?
about that.
No,
Don't
let's.
worry
If you
about
want to
that.
elaborate, Frank.
Unrelated.
Okay. Well, the Yellow Submarine featured a scene with the Frankenstein monster drinking a potion and becoming John Lennon.
Yeah,
Uh,
we're past that,
what?
though. I was gonna say something. Douglas mentioned Cuba, and I've heard of this Operation Carrier Pigeon. Have you ever heard of this? Where they use mind control to have basically people go back and forth delivering messages, and they did it in Puerto Rico, which is what made me think of it when you mentioned Cuba, because they're doing a lot of weird operations down there in the Caribbean.
I'm trying to Operation Carrier Pigeon, Cuba. If I type that in, could I find you think
Puerto
something there?
Rico. Michael Aquino was involved with it. That might help. But
Wow.
Kathy O'Brien writes about it in her book Transformation
Oh, man.
of America. Transformation.
Wow.
Man, that's crazy. I've also got. I can't find
Kathy
it. But if you
O'Brien.
find it,
Reputable. Intense.
the other crazy thing that happened this week I saw was that there's supposed to be the Artemis 1, and then everyone was all excited
shoot.
about it. And then right before it happened, they scrubbed the launch, right? And there's been all this other UFO papers that came out. Where was that?
Pentagon apparently has a 23-minute video of UFOs flying around. Would freak us out. They're not going to release it, but I did see that.
Yeah.
But they said they
Wait,
want to
say
go
that again,
full
Doug?
force.
Grocery store today, I saw a guy in a NASA shirt right before I came here.
Dude, and people at H&M, they buy those NASA shirts H&M sells and Target sells them. So they get all these people
this
thinking
was
it's
like
cool.
a uniform. This was like a guy who worked at NASA, like an
Oh.
official like polo
Oh.
shirt with the badge on it. I was like, what the hell?
That's pretty weird.
Up
But yeah, so they're saying it's not going to fly until it's ready. And I wonder if they mean like, is it like it puts the lotion on its skin until it's ready? Or do they like,
Yeah.
what do they mean here? I mean, and so they say, is the truth out there? They're going to release all this data full force. And then Congress sounds really concerned about unidentified aerial phenomena. Like that was that 20-minute video, and a lot of things that are supposed to be coming out that they don't want to tell us. But
That
what do
right
you
there.
think? Do you think that these things are connected? Do you think that the Artemis launch is somehow scrubbed
Connected to
because
UFOs?
of connected to UFOs?
Well,
Are the aliens
I mean,
keeping us down?
I don't know, but I'll tell you what. Either option to me is quite alarming because either UFOs are real, and that's alarming, right? Because they're not going to talk about it. We don't know how they work. It's crazy. Or we're just being gaslit for decade after decade, and by the government. That's also equally alarming. So that's
I
my
mean,
initial thought on it. I don't know if they're connected.
It's also
either way.
weird that they named it. There's the Apollo. This is Artemis. Artemis is the goddess of the hunt. She's the hunter of the wilderness, of the wild child, and all that other stuff. I mean, what are they trying to say? I mean, she's also really closely related to Hecate, course. Everything is that.
Isn't she a part of Hunger Games too? It seems like that's what they're trying to push us towards, the Hunger Games world.
Someone help me with this because I haven't really watched every episode of Hunger Games. Is Artemis
I just know
involved?
that it's the main character has that like presence of Artemis, whether it's name or symbolization. I haven't watched it.
I also have not watched it.
I fell asleep to it.
Did the press release say it's not going to fly until it's ready, or she's not going to fly until she's ready?
It said it was an it. Yeah, but that's why I mean it feels like it has more to do with us. Like society, like
yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, no, that's what it sounded. Because how would you just realize the day of the launch? You're like, oh, it's not ready. It's like, oh, it's not ready. Like, was that like a last minute diagnostic, or you just realized you forgot to put something in?
That's what they said. They're like, it was a last minute diagnostic, and we're like, well, it's too complicated.
It was a gas leak of all things, which I don't believe. I don't buy that for a second.
I mean,
it was yesterday.
Yeah, Monday, it was 2 days ago. Yeah, Monday. Right.
Oh, okay, Monday.
But then meanwhile,
electric's better, right?
Meanwhile, there's this small device that on Mars 1 generating as much oxygen as a tree, and it's about this size, and they want to start putting out these 3D oxygen printers, basically, for terraforming. So, I mean, think, what do they say? Scientists, if you thought packing the car, blah, blah, blah. Vice writes annoying articles. MIT.
We need those on Earth. We need those on Earth to like basically take in carbon dioxide and just...
Don't put them up there yet. Bring them back down here. Put them
Ian's ears are burning. You turn it into graphene.
You bring a relatively good point. So I wondered, how much does it cost to run, or what's it take to run the thing? You know, is it running off chemicals? Let's see. Takes a CO2 and CO exhaust from the process of creating 6 grams of oxygen per hour in each of its 7 runs by heating 800 degrees centigrade CO2. Okay, so the Martian CO2, and it breaks it out of the CO2. So it still has to eat CO2 at 800 degrees. That's pretty good.
Cool. Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, why? I mean, all this stuff, though, like, hey, space, we got to make it for space. And then, Ashton, you bring up the most relevant point. We need this here. Why? I mean, don't we? Or isn't that obviously what this is all really for? And then they're putting the money.
Yeah, I thought like if the Earth is dying, we should be like making stuff to help here, like not in space.
Wow.
It's like so strange.
I agree with that.
Thinking on the part of NASA and those folks, but it is interesting to mention they're doing this during a 10-day celebration for Ganesh, which takes place every year in India around this time. And Artemis is the moon deity and sort of wisdom. So is Ganesh. Ganesh is a deity, which is the wisdom deity, right? So there's a little bit of syncretism possibly going on. I don't know.
So this is supposed to be happening on Mars. That's where this is taking place.
Right. Do you believe that
I'm firmly in the camp that all the celestial objects are conscious plasma beings of some sort, like angels that are emitting frequencies that are
very John D of you.
Affect our moods, like mutants.
Cool.
Yeah,
I could have my mind changed if there was any evidence, but there's not. You know, I mean, I just look at them and go with my instincts and listen to other people, but.
I mean,
so it's going to go land on Mars. That's for sure. I mean, I've looked at it through a telescope and be like, doesn't look like a good landing spot. The whole thing's like a shimmering, transforming light. You know,
I like more and more the idea, like Planet of the Apes. Like every other place is just different times. So they jump through that Back to the Future, Van Allen belt, and then they end up on Earth again. But when they come back to Earth, it's like Earth when monkeys ruled, or or it's either a different time or it's a different arrangement in some way. I like that. And in Mars, we're like looking at ourselves at a different time, probably in our super past or our very close future or something to that effect.
Why would they bring a moon goddess named ship to the Mars? Right? Like, is there some kind of thinking there? I mean, are they just using symbolic names for like pastiche? Like, what? They don't just name it Artemis for no reason.
I don't think Artemis is going to Mars. Artemis is it's a multiple kind of tiered moon mission. Artemis first, what it's supposed to do this round is dump off some stuff that eventually will be built into a kind of mid base between the moon and Earth. Second round, they're going to bring some people up there to kind of put it all together. Third round, they're hoping to have it functional so they can go from the moon to the base to the Earth to Mars to the base and just like it be like the main way station. That's the whole Artemis.
Fertilizing the moon with Artemis. That makes sense.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Yes.
I mean, yeah, it's like they're impregnating Mars with the feminine energy. I don't know. It does feel like very occult.
The hunt stuff too. Also, that turns exploration on its head. We do know, no matter what they say, they have admitted that there is another intelligence up there. Whether it's us, it's or not, there's something other up there. So, and it
Up
also
where, on Mars?
No, but they have kind of
in the atmosphere.
They've kind of, in a sense, they've kind of acknowledged in ways. They've said, "Hey, there's
Who's
something
they,
else."
and what did they acknowledge?
Well, like, so come and take
UFO videos from the Navy. I mean,
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
CIA, the UAPFE or whatever the organization.
Why did they change the name? Why did we
we're
go from
gonna-
UFO to UAP?
So they can suss away everything real quick. Like, what is that? Bigfoot? No. What was
So
that?
when people search for what they're talking about, they don't find the decades of UFO researchers that they can't control. They find this new shit that's all funneled through the Navy.
Right. I feel like that's a big thing. And then there's simultaneously, like, UFO has to do with unidentified flying object. It could be drones. And that gets into Taiwan vows counterattack. We just saw that China had several drone strikes. And then Taiwan hit and blew up several of their crafts. I don't know if I have a photo of it, but they literally hit. Oh, they're throwing rocks at the drones. That was the first thing. Is Taiwan?
Damn, they got a good arm. They can't close to it.
Not bad at all. But I don't know where I saw some footage of them literally blowing up one of the drones. So, but it started out as just throwing rocks, and we're at that point now where the military has got all of these machines that are fighting each other. And the human interaction, it's literally going to be, hey, a dude throwing a rock at a drone, right? So, I mean, are we headed to, what do you guys think is going on with the World War as we're simultaneously hearing about space? Are these connected concepts?
Yes, absolutely. I think in this game, it is all connected. What's that line? Millionaires don't believe in astrology, billionaires do. There's certainly celestial games that are.
That's Warren Buffett said that.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely think that there's some orchestration, some very fine orchestration going on, and have been going on for some time.
I think what Mark said is right. Like what he said about like changing the name of UFOs so we don't acknowledge all the research. Like there's so much research going on into like what is the nature of reality. And it's amazing that we're here on the internet with all this technology. And it's like we're barely starting to pierce the veil of understanding what's actually going on. And it's such a demonized study. But there's been great minds who have really researched and done thought experiments. Like Rudolf Steiner has written all kinds of about like what is the true nature of celestial objects and stuff like that. And it's so demonized, and they try to laugh it off. But DMT is readily available, and people are like, "There's other stuff going on." I've never even done it, but I've done mushrooms and stuff. But it's like you can experience yourself, be like, "Oh, there's like all kinds of interdimensional stuff and other like consciousnesses around us and stuff." So then it's like, what are the odds, that things are as they explain them, so cut and dry? And all these world wars and stuff like that is obviously serving some kind of energetic purpose on their end, but like also I think it's also serves to just keep us distracted from our higher calling, which is attaining knowledge, eating from the tree of knowledge. I'm all about it, trying to figure out what's going on.
Well, I mean,
yes,
I'll
to
just
Rudolf
add,
Steiner. I just have to say that. Yes.
Oh yeah.
I just would. I mean, this is kind of general, but discussion and truth and getting to the bottom of anything is always discouraged. It seems to me from the powers that be, whatever the heck they are. Since I can remember thinking, well, what the heck's going on? It's hard for me to commit and say I think the world is this or I think my reality is that, because we don't really get any clear picture or discussion on it, at least not in the mainstream. You know what I mean? Like, are we a simulation? Is there the ability to travel through different dimensions with DMT? I don't know. I'd like to find out. That'd be cool.
I mean, the ad I was just looking at is literally Johnny Depp as Edward Scissorhands, which is close enough for me to say that we're definitely living in a synchronicity of something. It's more than random, right? I mean,
it's funny because I have an episode coming out tomorrow with Rizwan Virk, MIT graduate and author, wrote a book called The Simulation Multiverse, and he described the Mandela effect as like two blockchains linking together, blockchain being an analogy here for timelines, and the Mandela effect would be, kind of the blending event.
That's cool.
I just wanted to add on, there was a great stream a couple of weeks ago. Owen Benjamin hosted a stream with Crow 777 and Dave Weiss, all about, you know, just kind of the stuff
I
we're
was
talking.
just on Tinfoil Hat today. That episode will be out tomorrow. Look at that synchronicity again.
Boom.
Yeah, there you go. So that's the vanguard, and the forefront is really like, you know, not just in a fun, like a fun way thinking about this stuff, but how do we actually research this and like build on the ideas, you know?
Dude, also in terms of 2024, Los Angeles will vote on forcing hotels to
I saw
house
this, dude.
homeless. So, I mean, on one hand, you know,
It's going to be easy to get a cheap hotel room now, like $1 hotel room, just to keep the bums out.
on one hand, yeah, that means the end of tent city, right? Because they're going to take the migratory herds that are swarming and being filmed and documented by drones, and they're going to move them into
How?
gulags that they can just. Well, that's
How do
their
you
plan.
move
Right? You force them into gulags. You say you're not allowed to sleep outside. You're allowed to sleep inside because we've got places for you to sleep. It's all about offering time, place, and manner.
You can't arrest someone and take them to a hotel room. There's like a process. If somebody's breaking the law, you can apprehend them. But
So you just say that they're
you
just say they're trespassing on public property because they're vagrant, loitering.
to jail
whatever.
though, right?
In Santa Cruz, it was illegal to sleep outside, and they finally got to the Constitution of the Supreme Court to say no. Constitutionally, you can not take away people's right to sleep. It is it's a constitutional, you know, right to pursuit of happiness,
Inalienable right.
Inalienable right. And then they said, okay, you can't sleep at night. So at night, if you're outside, we'll get you. And so you can sleep in places certain times during the day. And then that way they had people sleeping in certain areas in Santa Cruz during the day that they could round up and they could move around and everything. And in other places, Los Angeles said, okay, you can sleep here during the night, but you can't be here at this hour because, you know, so they made all these time, place, and manner rules because you can say you have a right, but it's between the hours of 9 to 5 in the safe space. That's the way it's going to be. And if they have a place for you to go, then they can say, okay, well, we called first alarm. You know, the business district, commercial district did. First alarm came and asked you to leave. Then you're resisting first alarm asking you to leave. Then first alarm can call the police and say, hey, this guy's causing a disturbance. And so and it's very easy to arrest someone for doing almost nothing, or actually literally for doing nothing if it's loitering or vagabondry. But that's so on that level, there's that. But they put them into a hotel, into some sort of a gulag like situation, which isn't so bad, right? Because hotels can be kind of nice, but not all of these are going to be the Hilton. I'm assuming they're not moving them into the nicest hotels. There are a lot of Los Angeles hotels that are owned by Patel Indian families, for instance. So it'll be conservative Indian families in Los Angeles that are going to be forced to take in, these people, and it'll probably be somehow subsidized by the state, but at a very low flat rate or something to that effect. But what do you guys think? I mean, is this helping? I mean,
I don't trust it at all. I don't think that California wants to help people. So I don't
as
know
someone who's from there, I hear you. You know.
Yeah, I don't know what the genuine motive behind it is, but I don't think it's to help the homeless. That's just my opinion. It's my first. That's my first impressions anyway.
Can you use drugs in the hotel room? Because that's why no one goes to shelters, is because you can't do drugs there. The whole thing is a drug addict situation.
Well, whether they can or they can't, they will.
Right.
So it's going to happen. I mean, I'd imagine the hotels are going to leave California, and it's going to be a huge mess. I mean, also not to get off of the hotel stuff, but California also mandated that you can't in 2035 buy gasoline-powered cars, and simultaneously saying we have an energy crisis. Don't charge your electric vehicles. It's insane. California's crazy, dude.
Well, let's broaden this. Ashton, you're from California originally, right? Like you were born.
Yes, sir. I am from Berkeley, California.
No way.
Yes, sir.
So being from Mordor, you know, Slytherin from Mordor. I don't know. What do you think? Because we're not all of us, but some of us here are
You're from California. I'm from California. So it's funny.
I'm in California.
Paul's from California.
I'm from the Berkeley area too.
Oh, interesting. So Andreas, you grew up actually, I don't know if people are publicly aware of where you're from.
I'm born in the Prairie Bush. It's true. I was in the belly of the beast. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm actually proud to say I'm from Berkeley. I feel like Berkeley liberals and Oakland liberals are a lot different than, say, what I like to say are the white wine liberals from San Francisco and Piedmont and all those different places. So I'm actually very proud to be from Berkeley. They're very anti-war. I feel like they're woke in all the right places, despite me causing so much havoc during what I call my dumb years of life. But I'm very grateful to be from a place from like Berkeley, because at the end of the day, those are the people that I was raised on hating the war and questioning the government and whatnot. I feel like those are the true anarchists that are out there. But at the end of the day, I definitely got to experience sort of the school system, the education system that sort of molds you into something to be like everyone else, to be a tool of the system, really. And that's where I think the biggest issue is from. A lot of classes that you will take in university will sort of, you'll have professors that seem cool and seem like they're really teaching you how to fight the system. At the end of the day, you're just going to class to basically get a degree to be another cog in the machine, and activism becomes just a part of the Instagram profile. That's all it really is. So yeah, I mean, again, I'm proud to be from California, from where I'm from. I just wish activism wasn't being used as a way to sort of, I wish activism wasn't as corrupt as it used to be.
I feel like in California, it used to be like there's people from Santa Cruz, Bay Area. I hate to do this, but like I knew a lot of people growing up around me in the place I was. And granted, Santa Cruz is an Agenda 21 pilot program, so we had it first. But people that were so like products of progress, not just progressives. So you have kids whose parents were Buddhists or Vedic, lived Hare Krishnas in the 60s or something like that, or that they were cosmonauts or something. You had all kinds of different experiences, and it just seemed like we weren't racist at all. We were very open-minded, and then you have this push of people that want to be like that scene, and so the progressive that moved into California, moved into politics, moved into taking, hey, yeah, look at this cool brand. It's like the Steve Buscemi. Like, hey kids, where he's like, right. And it feels like California really went that way because nobody in the Berkeley, dropping acid and tuning out, whatever, dropping out. This is not leading to, this isn't the same place that the adrenochrome goes, right? And so you look at the Patrick Bateman, Gavin Newsom's guy, and he's that symbol of, when you say white wine liberal, it's the
white
Chicago
wine liberals,
Chicago,
the neolibs.
Yeah, neolibs, right? And that's a terrifying thing as well. Neocons and neolibs are pretty similar.
Well, I feel like neolibs, at the end of the day, are just like basically establishment Democrats. It's the people who will have Black Lives Matter signs in their front yard, but they're the first people to call the cops when someone steps on their grass the wrong way. So that's like what I think of. Those are the people that raised me, unfortunately.
What do you guys think is humanity?
Expand beyond that. That's great. Way to expand.
Is humanity?
Well, yeah, I think that was the issue. Is that I think liberalism got to a really toxic point where it really wasn't liberal anymore. And I think that's why a lot of people, especially during 2016 and 2019, got really turned off by it. And that's why so many Bernie supporters and so many libertarians ended up voting for Trump in 2016. And everyone's like, why is Trump getting all this liberal support? And it was because they were all turned off. But now the same thing's happening with the right wing. You have a lot of people who at the end of the day were just libertarians and left-wingers who got turned off by political correctness. And now they're surrounded by a bunch of right-wing crazies. And they're like, okay, time to go back to where we belong because this is just insane.
Yeah, I'm in Connecticut, and I feel like it's a compressed version of California. We have the same kind of mix of like university and wealthy and like that liberal side and the East Coast establishment. And you have like, the same element of like good old boys that you guys have. We just don't have those desert crazy people that you guys have out there in California.
Do you think in general humanity's headed towards the wrong or right direction? It seems obvious we could say, hey, there's a lot of things that are going wrong, but in general, the fact that we're able to talk about this information is getting out there. Do you think that there's in some ways that things are headed the right direction and we're just complaining a lot and that's helping?
I think there's a lot of good things and a lot of bad things in the world. I do fear for the future sometimes with how overstimulated a lot of the younger generation is. I definitely feel like I'm overstimulated to a lot of things. It's just getting worse and worse. The overconsumption is getting worse. But I think people are also starting to wake up and be more open-minded and a lot more open to conversation than I think the last generation was. And that does give me a lot of hope because when I'm on TikTok, for example, not so much Facebook or YouTube or Twitter. That's where I tend to attract more of the boomers. No offense to the boomers in the well, yes, offense. You guys are just if anyone's in a cult, it's the boomers, man. I mean, this whole generation, they always tell me, I'm not in a political cult. You have no idea what you're talking about. I'm like, you're the generation that believed that if you hid under a desk when a nuke came down from Russia, you'd be protected. I think you're pretty easy to swindle, honestly.
You're all Moonies. I agree.
The generation Z, which I'm technically a part of, but even the younger generation Z, I actually like. I don't, a lot of people are like, oh, these non-binary kids. I'm like, if someone identifies as non-binary, they can identify as non-binary. I really don't care about the different identity stuff. I really don't care about that stuff. What I care more about is this generation aware of the Federal Reserve? Is this generation aware of how to stop war and how to fight against war? Is this generation waking up to what the corporations and the corporate lobbyists and our government is working towards? Those are the bigger things that I care about. If someone wants to dye their hair, if boys want to wear makeup, if someone's non-binary, if someone's trans, I'm like, let live and let live. Let someone live their life, okay? A lot of people say, well, this is a culture war. This is some sort of agenda. I think there's bigger agendas to worry about, honestly. I really do. And the fact that we have kids who are watching cartoons, by the way, as much as I cringe on the new Teen Titans actually called out Nixon and the gold standard. They called out Nixon, the new Teen Titans show. And I'm thinking, well, if this young generation is growing up on as again, I miss the old Teen Titans. I'm a huge comic book nerd, so it's just like, I think the new one's really cringy, but they're calling out Nixon, and you got Beast Boy teaching young kids about the gold standards.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
It's amazing. And I'm like, you know what? If we've got these kids learning this stuff, there's some faith in the world. I think there's a lot more that we have to look forward to. Don't get me wrong. There's some things in the world I do worry about, like the overconsumption. I think consumption is a huge problem, especially with corporate matters. We have a lot of kids that are waking up at an early age, and I think it's pretty awesome.
In terms of imprinting, though, everyone's being imprinted. I think it comes back to that idea of, are we going to, learn? Kids are learning how to be like their parents, or their parents aren't there, so they're learning how to be like characters on TV, which are cartoons now. So, I mean, that was me as well.
I mean, here's the thing: so I'm autistic. I'm on the spectrum, and
congratulations.
I think, well, the thing is, as a lot more people are being diagnosed with autism, a lot of older generations, like, why is it all these kids are diagnosed with autism? I think it's actually opening up our minds to the fact that this is like why so many kids are good at TikTok and good at acting, is because the amount of people with autism is increasing, but I don't necessarily see it as a bad thing. I think we're seeing a lot of kids who are being more expressive, who are being more open-minded and willing to learn, because when someone has autism, a lot of the people that I speak to who are autistic, they tend to be more open-minded, and they tend to be more curious and open to different ideas outside of what the media is telling them. And I think we're getting a lot more artists that are, and I did say artists, not autists, artists that are willing to create more interesting things and develop. And I think this is a good thing. I really do. I think the next generation, Gen Z, as much as people want to make fun of them for always being on their phones, I think we're going to see a lot more great stuff from them.
Dude, I remember this time I was talking to this dude from Boston, and for like literally 10 minutes, I thought he was talking, because he said he was an autist. And so I was like, oh yeah, because like the spectrum. And I was like, what do you know? What? No, I'm a painter.
Oh, you're from New Jersey.
From Boston.
Okay.
He's like, oh,
I'm an artist from Boston.
Yeah. Good guy. I mean, okay. Well, in terms of also, did we cover the Winnie the Pooh thing? Did we do that yet? Okay, so the Winnie the Pooh.
Blood and honey.
Oh yeah, I mean, it is worth covering, and I'm excited for it. So the point of the reason I'm excited, of course, is because copyright is evil, and the idea of stories 100, 200, 300 years later being owned by somebody so that you can't tell that story, that's a scary thing, because it means kids can't make up their own stories. I mean, we wouldn't even have 50 Shades of Grey if it weren't for Twilight fan fiction. I don't know if that's the best example, but it is an example. But Winnie the Pooh horror movie, maybe not much of a better example, but it is one, is this idea that it's a horror film and then Disney can't stop it. And I'm a big fan. I love Disney, but I also love the idea of Disney can't stop it. And it looks pretty terrifying, right? Like Winnie the Pooh and Piglet.
I thought it looked hilarious.
I mean, I
gotta check this out. I haven't seen this yet.
My mom will be scared, but it's gonna be great. There's like Piglet and Pooh in the back, and they're coming for her. And like,
are they humans in masks, or is it actually Winnie the Pooh? Is it like a bear?
They're humans in masks.
Yeah, they're humans. I don't know.
I was
haven't
hoping
seen
for the
it.
animation. I wanted to see Lee go back in time and
However, like
watch
we
out,
might
Timothy Robbins.
people might
100
like this, but people don't like it when like Obi-Wan Kenobi is like retconned to be like bisexual or something like that. So it's like kind of like, where is the principle about intellectual property when it comes to characters, stories, art, you know, because there's stuff that we see, there's so much good in the original Star Wars, and then we hate when people change it in ways that we don't appreciate. But then when they do, like, I just want to know, where does the principle lie? As long as people have access to the real Winnie the Pooh and remember that, and that's like in the forefront, this is like some, you know, little offshoot thing.
Winnie the Pooh, even like Disney Winnie the Pooh, isn't the same as the original Winnie the Pooh, and I feel like that's the issue, is that with open sourcing it, free softwaring it, free intellectual, was open educational resource, whatever, copy left. When you put this out there for anybody, and they can make a horror Winnie the Pooh, it gets it done. It's done with, and then people can move on. If they love it, then it'll happen for a while. What scares me is when Disney says from now on, Obi-Wan's gay, which is different than saying, hey, here's a version of Obi-Wan where he's gay. Because it's like, we can have non-canonical stories. Actually, doesn't bother me at all if someone wants to write a bunch of Star Wars erotica or fan fiction comic. Like, that's really doesn't bother me. But I mean, if it's from now on, and this isn't even relevant that they made Obi-Wan gay. It's that they made Obi-Wan the film series poorly, is all. And then now that is the
well, no, but my point was Obi-Wan is, yeah, well, you're the Star Wars guy, so I'm sure you have something to say about it as well. But Obi-Wan is asexual because the person who created the character never assigned him a sexuality. So that's like, there's something important about the intention of that. Like a lot of
having a relationship in the Clone Wars series.
Yeah, he had that girlfriend.
None of that is canon.
It was Satine.
Satine from the Mandalore planet. She's super hot and kind of Slavic. I'm pretty sure
And then
Mandalorians are
Maul
Slavic.
murders her in front of Obi-Wan because he's like, I really don't like you, Kenobi. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do it.
See, I never realized. Seriously, I thought Anakin was the only one that broke that rule because he was in love with Padme. And
Obi-Wan's clearly in love with Obi-Wan. Loves Qui-Gon Jinn the whole time. He's like, and you know, all of a sudden Qui-Gon Jinn's into this new boy, and he's like, I got this boy. There's something about this boy. And then Obi-Wan's like, dude, I'm right here. You know, like the whole time. No one really gets the angst that's going on between the two of them. There's something there.
I don't see that. I see that as a.
You're very wrong, Andreas.
That is
bigger midichlorians.
Different interpretation.
Just saying, Disney, if you're trying to get new writers for your Obi-Wan, hire me, I guess. I don't know. But, no, but if you think that Obi-Wan had no sexuality, I would disagree, because I think he's a repressed sexual being. That's what all Jedi tend to be, right?
With that.
I mean, so is a repression of sexuality essential to being a good person in Star Wars? And is that right? What do you think?
No. And
say that question again, Andreas.
No, and no. But yeah, go ahead.
Is repression of sexuality important to a good thing, or is it important to being good? And is that right?
I mean, it is to the Jedi Order, but you know, the Jedi Order was flawed.
Well, that's the whole Joseph Campbell archetype that you know, what's his name, Lucas was playing at. I mean, Jedi are just taking on this like monk persona, and yeah, there's plenty of esoteric information. I mean, there's plenty of guys in the like manosphere that are telling people retain your semen for various different reasons, but
control is different than repression.
Meanwhile, the Sith, they always crap where they eat, though, right? And then you shouldn't. Maybe that's a problem too.
I think all the details like didn't improve the Star Wars lore. Like after the original trilogy, like when people understood what the Force was, then when Lucas came back and he's like, "Oh, midichlorian count can," you know what I mean? Like none of that improved it. Any of the details about the Jedi Order and celibacy and all this stuff and younglings, like none of that really improved it. I think the story was so beautiful and archetypical, and like the way it was presented in the original trilogy, and everyone filled in the blanks in a much better way than all the details that were delivered later.
Okay, gay Dumbledore then. I mean, in terms of
that makes sense. That 100% makes sense. No, hold on. So I never understood the whole Obi-Wan Kenobi thing, dating anyone. I always saw Obi-Wan Kenobi as asexual. Gay Dumbledore 100% makes sense. 100% makes sense, because the thing is that since I was a kid, you know, before J.K. Rowling said anything, everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, Dumbledore and Minerva McGonagall are together." I'm like, no, they're not, because Minerva McGonagall is divorced from this like Muggle guy, and honestly, Dumbledore
she's a serial gambler. She can't handle that stuff.
Also, she wanted Dumbledore, but she couldn't.
No, I'm telling you, Dumbledore. I always saw Dumbledore. Dumbledore has always been either asexual or gay, and the way J.K. Rowling explains it, like when she first says it, is he just seems like someone who I never saw the Wizarding world as accepting of gay people the same way. I honestly felt like they were never as accepting. But the reason why I'm saying it is like I'm 100% pro gay marriage. I'm 100% pro. The problem is I think what happens is for me,
marriage isn't good for many people.
Well, I saw the Wizarding world always is very conservative, not because I want it to be, but because of the way the Ministry of Magic works. And that's why I always thought that Dumbledore was gay and a bit of a closeted gay, because he always seemed to be someone who just kept himself reserved, someone who just like wouldn't go out to make any personal relationships. And even though he, like, for example, he cares
He's also
about
like 100.
Right.
Like,
and he never,
like VBDC said, like when you get older, you're not exactly
Taking lots of naps now.
The way
when I was saying asexual, I didn't mean like he identifies as asexual and tells everyone about it. I mean literally for the purposes of the story, it's easier if you never even consider whether or not the person has ever had sex. It's not part of the. It doesn't improve the experience.
Well, it's not just sexual. It's how he sort of treats everyone around him in general, and this could be a result of him missing a sister who died, but it's also the factor of I felt like he kept himself very reserved, he kept himself very quiet, and didn't keep too many people too close to him because he was afraid of losing them. And I think he was someone who it made sense to me when she said he was gay, and someone who just like felt like he could never express that or come out about that.
But did do the right thing by not putting it in the book? I mean, isn't that why the book's better?
So the reason why she couldn't put it in the book, Andreas, is because think about it. She's writing this book series and she's already getting flack by the Christian community. Again, this is like early 2000s when she became most popular. Back when the Bush era was in its prime, all these Christian conservatives across America, and I'm sure across England as well, were accusing her of teaching children about witchcraft. And so, of course, she's not going to put a gay headmaster in her books because that would just destroy everything. I mean, people would
very on top for me. Oh my god! And he's gay too. There's all sorts of crazy spells.
I'm telling you.
I think she had every opportunity to put it in the book.
Gay Dumbledore 100% makes sense. Here's the thing too, and a lot
some of the Hobbits are gay for sure. In Lord of the Rings,
I wouldn't be Pippin. Pippin and Merry are gay for each other. You can't tell me that they're not.
Hold on.
Wait, they're cousins now. Never mind. They're cousins.
Yeah, I disagree with that.
I just realized they're cousins.
I just want to express why I disagree before I hear you express why you're saying this again and again. So, Merlin, I'm almost certain, is where Dumbledore comes from. And I also disagree that, does a man have to be gay because he has feminine qualities? I don't know about that. I mean,
he's not feminine at all. I never see. He's a
little elegant. He's kind of elegant.
No.
I mean, that's really what I
isn't feminine.
Why not Merlin?
Wait. Hold up. First of all, Dumbledore is not based on Merlin. Merlin is his own character in the Harry Potter series. And second of all, I wouldn't say Dumbledore is feminine in any sense. The most feminine character, actually, that's a male, I would say is Lucius Malfoy of all like the males. He was the most feminine, and he is definitely straight. Or Gilderoy Lockhart.
Yeah, I was gonna go with Lockhart, but
Dumbledore. I always felt like Dumbledore was either gay or asexual. When she pointed it out, it definitely made a lot of sense to me. But yeah, I never say it was because he was feminine, because I never got any feminine traits from him at all.
I never got the sense that any of the professors were gay or straight.
Right, and so I wonder if it's not necessary,
it's a sign of the times. Yeah, I mean, when
more and more factors in a story for people to care about.
Here's the question: if she had never said anything about Dumbledore's sexuality, would anyone be questioning and saying he's gay to begin with?
Today they would. No. 30 years ago they wouldn't. If
he's
Star Wars the original trilogy came out today, people probably would think Obi-Wan Kenobi was bi, or like at least entertain the notion. Whereas it was not a conversation that was. No one even entertained the notion.
Nobody's ready for what they're going to do to Luke. I know it's coming.
I really. Here's the thing.
Mark Hamill is the most guilty of that, man. What a disappointment! All my favorite characters are played by like the worst people in real life.
Why would you say that about Mark? Because of the political stuff that he does?
Yeah.
It is.
Intense. He is the best Joker. I mean, come on.
I mean, just because he has hypnotic reactionary.
Mark Hamill is the best Joker. I'm sorry.
He is the best Joker. He's a great actor. He's just not a great person.
I like his voice a lot as Joker.
Heath
though.
Ledger is not the
Who do you
best
like
Joker.
the best? Who's the best?
In case
Jack Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson, of course.
Caesar Romero was amazing, by the way. Even though he had the mustache, Caesar Romero killed it.
Yes,
Darth
Romero
Call, I
did
wanted
kill
to
it.
hear your pick. Who's your best Joker?
Hmm?
Darth Call, who's your best Joker?
I don't have a favorite best Joker. I think that if it depends on which world you're doing. I mean, okay, if you think about the Joker, whoever's the funniest, that's certainly one aspect, and that would be Jack Nicholson. Because of all the Jokers I've ever watched, the only one that ever makes me laugh and laugh hard is Jack Nicholson. But on the other hand, you got Christopher Nolan's version of Batman, which is much more realistic. And what if Batman was really a billionaire, really in the world? And then you have that Joker, and that one blew me away. And I remember when he got cast, and I was ragging on it, saying, "Oh, Heath's gonna suck. He's gonna suck." I can't believe they cast Heath Ledger, and then he blew my mind because he was incredible.
I didn't like Heath Ledger. Honestly,
okay. I thought he was
he
great.
makes me. He gives me more. Honestly, Heath Ledger's Joker is a ripoff of The Crow. Change my mind.
Of course.
Change my mind. Think about it. Put those two and two together.
I thought we all knew that. I thought that was his play. That's what he was doing. Though,
We can all agree on Jared Leto, though. No disagreement there.
I'm a Caesar Romero guy. I don't know if that's is this too
Also
much.
Caesar
Yes, Caesar.
Yeah, I feel like I think it's my favorite.
He had a great
Matt,
laugh.
how can you go
What a
wrong?
great guy.
I'm a
Julie
Roger Moore
Newmar
guy.
as Catwoman. Oh my gosh.
Yes,
Eartha
number one.
Kitt. Eartha Kitt
Also
is
great.
Catwoman.
Frank Gorshin is the
great.
Riddler. I mean, you can't beat that. Jim Carrey, come on, get out of here. Get out of here.
I think
Jim
we just
Carrey
went.
was actually great as the Riddler. I'm sorry, he was
Yeah, I
really
liked-
good.
I like everything about Batman because you have like
I
a
have
right.
Two-Face in
Yeah.
that movie though.
You have a-
Two-Face with Drew
Tommy Lee
Barrymore as
Jones
one
on
of his.
drugs. That's what that is. That's Tommy Lee Jones on drugs. He's like
So
dropping
bad.
acid and laughing.
But
bad.
you've seen that meme. You've got a right wing trust fund kid who is fighting against a lady who's against global warming and is about she's environmental rights. She's trying to clean up Poison Ivy's trying to clean up the world. Mr. Freeze, he's just trying to get rid of all the
Schwarzenegger.
He
heat.
was trying to kill
And-
humans.
No, he's trying to get rid of the global warming problem, really. 'Cause it's too
You know what's
hot.
funny is he's Mr. Freeze, but he does have a doctorate, but he goes by
Yeah.
Mr.
That's pretty
What's
chill.
strange to
I
me?
don't want to intimidate
but
people.
Oh, I didn't even get that. Chill. Amazing.
But here's
Well-
the thing: is with the Batman characters, I never understood why they portrayed Bane the way they did in that movie Poison Ivy, like he's some sort of servant to her,
Mm.
and he's not. Because Bane in the comic books is actually very intelligent and very smart and really witty, but for some reason in that movie he's just this big dumb man who's just like following Poison Ivy around. It's very
Well,
strange.
there's also nipples on bat suits in that movie. There's a lot of nonsensical
I'll
stuff.
allow,
I
I'll
wonder-
allow it. That's fine.
I wouldn't
If you,
go
ever,
too deep
if,
into
you,
it.
if you ever 3D scan yourself, you'll get nipples. That's how you make that out.
It's
All
true.
right.
But why wasn't
Yeah.
there one on the female bat suit then?
That's the problem, and I think that's really we have to talk about societal
Equal
two-sided issue.
representation of
Mhm.
nipples.
Right,
Equal.
nipples
Equal
out.
nipples.
All right, well, guys, we made it. We made it through the 2 hours. I'm impressed with all of you. So,
Thank you.
Ashton, do you want to tell us where we can find some of your content?
Yes, I have a new video coming out soon. I'm actually going to be posting. I found like my old fan fiction I wrote when I was 12 years old that I'm going to be doing a series on. This is my YouTube channel. I posted a new TikTok today making fun of Children of the Corn. But yeah, this is my YouTube channel. It's all pop culture. It's all talking about things like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, D&D. And I'm going to base it's all through just my perspective of the world, and it's a bit edgier than most, but I hope you enjoy.
I love your videos, and it's just so quick and just funny, and yeah. So seriously, it's worth your time. Mark, tell us where we can find My Family Thinks I'm Crazy, and anything else you want to connect to.
Yeah, myfamilythinksimcrazy.com. YouTube, of course, just search My Family Thinks I'm Crazy. Got an episode coming out tomorrow and Friday, and I think your audience is gonna like the one on Friday. It's all about star forts, and then of course Alt Media United, place for anyone with a podcast. Hit me up if you got a podcast. And
You just did Christopher Knowles. That's awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to
You
listen
know-
to that one.
That's a great name for a podcast, man. I'm not going to lie. My family thinks I'm crazy.
Thank you.
That's prime. That's great. I love it.
It is pretty based, and he lives up to the name. I mean, covering.
I
all the
can
content.
relate.
Oh, I've been taking you on my walks for the past week. It's been fantastic, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah.
Yeah, we're doing great. I love the show. I love all the folks I talk to. I especially love Wednesdays, doing Wednesday Ultra. So thanks for having me again.
So hyper ultra, and then of course Mr. Douglas, his website Mist 3R Douglas, Mr. Douglas, and he's got some podcast projects. Tell us what you've been up to and what we can get some more of your content.
Putting out some timeless wisdom with Aesop's Fables, my audio production way. Trying to get them out once a day, but I got like 21 out. So enjoy the timeless wisdom. They're like 2.5 minutes max, so they're easy to chew on with breakfast. Yeah, I just pumping out the good times and hoping the good vibes go forward. I wanted to say about Rudolf Steiner. He's got a great book. Thank you so much, Seth, because talking about how people want to be thinking clearly and having an anchor for themselves. Steiner writes a book, The Philosophy of Freedom. It's a little bit of a chew through, but it is worth it because you will have a sharper mind and experience in life. So yeah, Philosophy of Freedom.
Dude, Steiner's dreamy. And then Stefan sends a super chat really quickly. Kalen says, and we love you, Stefan. Good to see you. The spectrum of the grayscale does go all the way from white to black. What would it mean to be cut off from the spectrum? Yeah, I think
It means you have a hue. You're a color.
yeah, human. It would be human. That would be what it would be. All right.
You're in Pleasantville.
Doctor. I was about to say Doctor Call. Darth Call.
MD, baby.
Can't help myself. So Better Call Saul. Let me pull up the Better
Better
Call
call,
Saul.
call. Come on now.
Better Call. Better Call. All
There you
right.
go.
And then what else am I going to find? I'm going to pull up your YouTube channel.
Okay, well, I mean, I have a bunch of different channels that's all Darth Call. I do a podcast, like you just said, every Thursday at 6 p.m. with Mr. Douglas as my co-host called Better Call. That's at 6 p.m. Pacific time. So if you want to hear more discussion about the goings-on in the world, that's the time to do it.
Look
You
for
can follow
Darth
me on
Call because Better Call just Saul's out. So Darth Call will be you can get to him immediately that way.
There you go. I usually stream on Twitch, and those are character streams. As you can see, there's Pennywise, my own character, Darth Maul, and Jack Sparrow, and a bunch of other people. If you want my opinions and you want to hear what I'm thinking, follow me on Twitter. If you don't. Instagram is just where I post character clips of myself or just a lot of my cat, who is straight up like Siberian supermodel cat. For real. And you can follow me on TikTok if you want as well. If you want to see Darth Maul shirtless eating pasta at Olive Garden. And I apologize. Yeah, it's a good video. I highly recommend it. I just also want to say it's been a pleasure, and I apologize for yawning. I was not bored. I've been struggling.
I thought you were speaking Wookiee. I thought it was a Kashyyyk reference.
That's what I was doing.
I have the same problem. I had to grab a Coke because I was just like, I'm not even bored. I'm just like, I get like really tired easily. My bedtime's actually like 9
yawning's good. It
o'clock.
puts oxygen in your brain.
I thought it was
also
an MK Ultra
recharge,
trigger
refresh.
response. We're all ultra. We're a little.
I
we're all a little
felt
ultra.
so
you were
rude.
so
I was like,
asleep.
I'm not bored. I hope they don't think I'm bored. And just like my bedtime is like 9:30, so I'm just like out of
No,
it.
I figured CIA agents, that have been mind controlled properly, they have an auto destruct and they have a sleeper cell if you trigger the wrong word. So when we got into hypno, I was like, oh well, we better be careful. It's better to fall asleep than to run through bulletproof glass. Anyway, Holly sends us 20 and promotes
20
and claps for
Holly, what are you
Venice
doing?
Beach Dub Club. Thank you so much, Holly. We love
She's
you
on a
very much.
hedgehog because I love hedgehogs. That's my dream pet. I'm going to get one day.
Holly,
I
you're
wanna cheat
super
it.
based. I appreciate you being here. And then everybody, I think that also the point of that is to tune in to Venice Beach Dub Club show, which also is every night but this night now, I think basically Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And then Thursday tomorrow is the Better Call show as well. So everybody watch each other's shows. Let's all mingle. I love you all. Thank you very much.
And, can I plug my music real quick? Check out
yes. I knew I forgot.
It's all right. My link tree is VBDC, and I do have new songs and music videos out, and more on the way. And I do my show on Instagram live at 6 o'clock California time every weekday except Wednesday.
Linktree VBDC, guys. Definitely get his new Hard Roots album and song, and check out his new album. It's epic. So love you all. Take 2. See you guys next time. Peace out.
Thank you, my friend.
Later.